Chapter 2069. Mushi couldn't understand why Nyetian didn't want to leave the myriad devil abyss. Nyetian would rather risk being hunted down by everyone in order to stay in the myriad devil abyss. What was he trying to do? However, Nyetian didn't say it directly, so she didn't ask. Nyetian, are you really not leaving the myriad devil abyss? Mushi frowned after a moment of silence. Ninth Princess, I do have something important to do. You should leave first, Nyetian said sincerely. He didn't want to implicate Mushi. However, Mushi's reaction was out of his expectations. She suddenly raised her head and said, If you don't leave, I won't leave either. Nyetian was stunned for a moment and said, Ninth Princess, since you know I will be hunted down, why are you still following me? This is my father's order. I can't defy it, Mushi said resolutely, leaving no room for discussion. Nyetian had a helpless expression. Since Mushi had already made such a decision, he couldn't say anything else. Nyetian, let's leave this place first. I'm afraid someone will find us soon, Mushi said as she led the way. The three of them went deeper into the water. Half a day later, the entire myriad devil abyss was in an uproar. Almost everyone knew that a human had entered the myriad devil abyss. The myriad devil abyss is the holy land of the 9 races. How can a despicable human enter our holy land? Humans don't deserve to enter the Jiuli demon realm, much less the myriad devil abyss. I must kill the human brat. I heard the human brat is with the wood elf race's 9th princess. I really don't understand what the wood elf's 9th princess is thinking. Is there something wrong with her head? She's actually with a human. The 9 races discussed angrily. Everyone had expressions of righteous indignation. They wanted nothing more than to skin the human who had entered the myriad devil abyss alive. At the same time, Nyetian's group of 3 appeared in a deep water region. Along the way, they did their best to avoid the crowds, but they still encountered some people and had some small conflicts. With Nyetian's strength, he could have easily killed those who were chasing him, but he didn't kill them. Instead, he scared them away. At that moment, they were at the bottom of the water. The pressure in the water was so great that even Nyetian found it difficult to breathe. The deeper one went into the water, the stronger the surrounding pressure. At the same time, there were relatively few people who could reach this depth. With Nyetian and the others here, at least they wouldn't encounter too many people chasing after them. Qinya, are you all right? Nyetian asked worriedly when he saw Rui Qinyu's flushed face. I'm fine, Rui Qinyu insisted. She didn't want to be a burden to Nyetian. Nyetian, she won't be able to hold on for long. We have to go to the surface. Mushi frowned as she sensed Rui Qinyu's aura. Rui Qinyu wasn't strong. She could barely stay in such a deep water region. If she stayed for too long, she wouldn't be able to hold on. No need. Nyetian smiled faintly. The 9 extremities appeared in his hand. He said to Rui Qinyu, Qinya, you go into the 9 extremities first. Okay. Rui Qinyu nodded. She didn't want Nyetian to worry about her. With a thought from Nyetian, the 9 extremities released a faint space-time pressure. A ray of light appeared. Rui Qinyu stepped into it and disappeared. Mushi was stunned as she watched from the side. She didn't expect Nyetian to have such a miraculous thing. Nyetian was much more relaxed after settling Rui Qinyu down. He turned to Mushi and asked, 9th Princess, can you still hold on? I'm fine. Mushi smiled faintly. She was a late overgod, and she was a wood-attributed cultivator. The pressure right now wasn't too great for her. Very good. Let's go deeper then. Nyetian smiled faintly and indicated for Mushi to lead the way. Nyetian could only sense everything within 500 meters of him. As a result, it was the wiser choice for Mushi to lead the way. Mushi was stunned. She had never thought that Nyetian's martial body would be so tough. Nyetian's martial body was terrifying for a mid-overgod to withstand the pressure of the depths of the myriad demon abyss. The 2 of them continued to dive deeper. The surroundings were pitch black, and the pressure was extremely great. It felt extremely heavy. Nyetian was worried about the vein of the dragon spring, but he had no clues nor did he know how to look for it. He only knew that the vein of the dragon spring was in the deepest region of the myriad demon abyss, but he was not certain whether he had reached the deepest region or not. He did not have any good ideas either. He could only take it one step at a time. What a huge demonic crystal! Mushi suddenly cried out at this moment. She was extremely excited, and yet Tian was taken aback for a moment. Then, he followed Mushi's gaze and saw a huge object floating hundreds of meters away. His senses were below Mushi's, so he could not see what the huge martial body was. Let's go over quickly. However, Mushi was extremely excited. With a cry of pleasant surprise, her figure flashed and dashed forward. Tian followed right after. The two of them arrived before the huge object very soon. It was a huge, black rock that was several hundred meters wide. This is a magical crystal. Tian stared blankly at the huge rock in front of him, his eyes trembling uncontrollably. A demonic crystal that was several hundred meters wide was just too terrifying. Tian and she had found many demonic crystals before, but most of them were fists. The larger ones were only the size of a head. A mana crystal that was a few hundred meters long was a little frightening. Yeah, Mushi was also stunned for quite a while. She finally returned to her senses and nodded in a daze. Let alone Tian. Even Mushi had never seen such a huge demonic crystal before. However, the presence of a demonic crystal could not be wrong. This huge black rock was definitely a demonic crystal. After a long while, Mushi finally calmed down a little. She could not help but praise. I've seen a demonic crystal over a meter wide in the past. That's the largest demonic crystal our Greenwood Empire possesses. It's rumored that the Bloody Empire has a 10-meter wide demonic crystal. That's the largest demonic crystal that's appeared so far. A demonic crystal as big as this is completely beyond my imagination. I think if other people saw this demonic crystal, they would definitely go crazy from excitement. This is definitely a super demonic crystal. As she spoke, Mushi turned to look at Tian and said excitedly, Tian, our luck is really too good. Tian nodded, and his expression became much calmer. He said with a faint smile, I wonder how much divine power is contained in such a super demonic crystal. Tian estimated that even if he used the furnace of hell to refine such a huge demonic crystal, it would take a long time. It had to be said that their luck was really off the charts. They actually found a super demonic crystal. In this way, Mushi and Tian would undoubtedly be the champions of a 9-clan struggle. Chapter 2070. Looking at the super magical crystal in front of them, Tian and she took a long time to calm down. Next, the problem in front of them was how to take the super magical crystal away. The space ring definitely couldn't contain such a huge magical crystal. This is troublesome. We have to cut the magical crystal into many smaller pieces before we can put them in the space ring. Mushi's delicate face looked worried as she said, but we don't have a magic blade to cut the magical crystal. If we use brute force to cut it, I'm afraid we'll waste a lot of time. If we stay here for too long and are discovered by others, it'll be terrible. With that, Mushi turned to look at Tian, obviously waiting for Tian to make a decision. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I can put the magical crystal directly. Tian smiled faintly and looked confident. Mushi was stunned for a moment, looking at Tian in disbelief. Even if there was a super large space ring that could contain such a huge magical crystal, it would definitely cause the space in the space ring to be unstable, and the space ring would most likely shatter. Just as Mushi was feeling puzzled, a space-time vortex appeared in Tian's hand. It was the 9 extremities. He was going to put the super magical crystal directly into the 9 extremities. The 9 extremities world was very big. Even a small mountain could be easily contained, let alone a huge magical crystal that was hundreds of meters long. This thing again, Mushi exclaimed when she saw the 9 extremities in Tian's hand. She had seen Rui Qinyu enter the 9 extremities just now, and now Tian actually wanted to put such a huge magical crystal into the 9 extremities. That was really too strange. Mushi dared not imagine how big the space in the nine extremities was. She couldn't even understand what the nine extremities in Nietion's hand was. Nietion didn't explain too much. After smiling faintly, he asked Mushi to step back. He opened the nine extremities directly, and a huge space-time vortex appeared, enveloping the magical crystal. Then, with a thought from Nietion, the super magical crystal was put into the nine extremities. Mushi was stunned, watching from the side, unable to say a word for a long time. "Ninth Princess, let's go." Nietion smiled and prepared to leave. Mushi reacted and nodded slightly, an unconcealable smile on her face. She really didn't expect that what she thought was impossible would become so easy in Nietion's hands. "Watch out." But just at this moment, Mushi suddenly noticed something, and her face instantly changed as she cried out. Unfortunately, it was too late. Boom! Practically at the same time that Mushi's voice resounded, a violent rumble resounded in the water layer, and then an enormous blackwater arrow whistled over, directly striking towards Nietion. Nietion instantly felt a strong, killing intent, but it was too late when he wanted to counterattack. At this critical moment, he immediately activated the purple lightning heaven armor, and a layer of purple lightning appeared around his body. Bang! In the next moment, the blackwater arrow fell, and with a muffled sound, Nietion's body flew out, and a bloody trail appeared in the water layer. Nietion! The sudden scene caused Mushi to cry out in shock. Her figure flashed, and she charged towards Nietion. At this moment, Nietion barely steadied himself, but his body was covered in blood. His chest was a bloody mess, and blood kept gushing out. The arrow had been so powerful that it had directly pierced through Nietion's violet thunder battle armor and struck him squarely in the chest. If it weren't for the strength of Nietion's martial body, he would have been a pile of flesh by now. "Nietion, are you okay?" Mushi saw that Nietion was almost covered in blood, and she panicked. Her eyes trembled, and she seemed to be about to cry. "Ninth Princess, I'm fine." Nietion took a deep breath. His body trembled, and the blood on his body immediately split open. The wound on his chest also healed at a visible rate. In the blink of an eye, it was completely healed. Mushi was stunned by the scene before her. She gasped, and she was so shocked that she was speechless. She could not believe her eyes. Nietion's recovery rate was actually so monstrous. It had completely overturned everything she knew. The bodies of humans were much weaker than the 9 primordial clans. Among the ancient era's 9 clans, other than the dark monstrous clan of the 3 great monstrous clans, the one with the strongest recovery ability was the wood elf clan of the 5 great monstrous clans. However, Mushi knew that even if she was a late paramount god, she would not be able to recover as monstrously as Nietion. Her father, Mu Xiangshan, could recover instantly, but Mu Xiangshan was the king of the wood elves, a peak paramount god. On the other hand, Nietion was only a human mid-over-god. How could he have such great recovery rate? Little did Mushi know that Nietion had fused with the Earth Origin energy, the Sovereign Dragon's vein, the Chaotic Flames, and the Starry Origin Stone. With the support of so many monstrous trump cards, Nietion's recovery rate was monstrous. As long as it wasn't a fatal injury, Nietion would be able to recover in an instant. "Get out here!" Nietion ignored Mushi's surprise. Instead, he bellowed out furiously. He released a tremendous sword aura, which expanded through the water. The water in a radius of 10,000 meters began to tremble. "You're actually still alive after being hit by the black water arrow. Human kid, you've amazed me." Afterwards, a black figure appeared in the water. As it gradually became clearer, it was a humanoid monster covered in black scales. The monster's eyes flickered with cold light as it constantly studied Nietion. A black-scaled demon. Mushi immediately cried out when she saw the monster. Her face was filled with shock. The person who had appeared before Nietion and Mu, she was one of the 3 great demon clans, the black-scaled demon clan. Nietion was slightly taken aback. Then he focused his gaze on the black-scaled demon in front of him. So far, the 3 great demon clans had all appeared. The Bloodfiend Demon Clan, the Dark Demon Clan, and the Blackscale Demon Clan were the three great demon clans of the 9 Archean clans. Who are you? Nietion's eyes darkened as he roared coldly. I'm the third prince of the Blackscale Demon Clan. Heisha, replied Heisha. He stared at Nietion with his wolf-like eyes, as if he was searching for something. You're Heisha. Mushi's eyes suddenly trembled when she heard the name. Her face was filled with fear. Nietion noticed Mushi's reaction and his heart sank. It seemed that this guy called Heisha was very famous. He was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Little girl, if I'm not mistaken, you should be the 9th princess of the Wood Elves, Mushi. Heisha chuckled and revealed a row of sharp white teeth. They were actually the same as the teeth of a shark. Hey, Heisha, why are you here? Mushi's eyes flickered. Even her voice was trembling. She had never seen Heisha before, but the latter's name was well known. Chapter 2071. The 3 great monstrous clans had 3 great evildoers. The Blackscale Monstrous Clan's Heisha was one of them. Although Heisha was a cultivator of the younger generation, his strength had already reached the peak paramount god realm. His battle power was even more terrifying. Even among the older generation, he could not be considered weak. Among the experts of the 9 ancient clans' new generation, Heisha was much more famous than Xue Xing and the others. His battle power was also much stronger than Xue Xing and the others. Mushi had never imagined that they would encounter such a terrifying enemy like Heisha. At that moment, Nietion also noticed that Heisha's strength was extremely terrifying. Although the arrow from earlier was a sneak attack, it was enough to prove that Heisha was very powerful. Human brat, I'll tell you the truth. I, Heisha, have come here especially for you, Heisha said coldly. His eyes were cold and emitted sharp killing intent. You've come to kill me? Nietion's expression was gloomy. The sword aura around his body rose to the peak. He was prepared to fight to the death at any moment. What do you think? Heisha sneered and immediately moved. He slapped his palm forward. In an instant, the surrounding water started to churn. Driven by boundless power, a huge pillar of water appeared. It was like a flood dragon. It was boundlessly berserk and crazily pressed down on Nietion. Nietion felt the incomparably violent aura rolling down on him. His eyes suddenly trembled, and his expression changed. The sword aura around him immediately fell, and a terrifying sword shadow appeared in the water, falling straight down. Rumble! In the next instant, a series of loud rumbles resounded. Terrifying waves spread out in all directions. The water within a radius of several tens of thousands of meters violently churned. It was extremely terrifying. At practically the same time, a terrifying wave of air rushed over. In an instant, Nietion's body was sent flying again. Nietion! Mushi cried out in alarm. Just as she was about to attack, she saw the boundless waves pressing down on her. She immediately felt a suffocating pressure. Heisha's battle power was too powerful. Mushi didn't even have the chance to attack him. Human kid, if you only possess such strength, then wouldn't you really disappoint this king? Heisha's gloomy laughter spread out in the water, and it seemed to be violent and ruthless. Nietion's figure was pushed back thousands of meters before he finally steadied himself. He looked down and saw that there were countless bloody wounds all over his body. Some of the wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. He was once again covered in blood. Damn it! Nietion roared inwardly. The earth vein essence within his body circulated, and the wounds on his body began to heal up. One had to admit that Heisha's strength was too powerful. Even if Nietion activated his 3 great forbidden skills, he still wouldn't be able to contend against him head-on. Fortunately, Nietion's martial body was strong enough. Otherwise, he would not have been able to withstand Heisha's attack. However, while the earth vein source could instantly heal Nietion's wounds, it couldn't instantly replenish his blood chi. If he continued to fight, the situation would be very disadvantageous for him. Although the sword strike just now wasn't Nietion's strongest sword strike, he had gone all out. He estimated that even if he used the Devil God Sword intent, he still wouldn't be able to shake He-Sha. Yang Qi's current battle prowess was equivalent to that of a late paramount god. Therefore, he wasn't a match for a peak paramount god like Hazer. Right now, there were only two paths in front of Yetion. One was to let Sakura fight, and the other was to leave. After thinking for a moment, he finally decided to leave this place. Human kid, do you want to run away? He-Sha was very smart. He immediately saw through Yetion's intention. He stretched out his hand, and a terrifying wave of chi appeared, which turned into a huge hand that enveloped Mushi. Yetion frowned, and his expression changed. Not only was He-Sha's battle prowess terrifying, but he was also very cunning. Seeing that Yetion was about to leave, he directly restrained Mushi. Mushi immediately reacted and shouted, "Yetion, don't worry about me. You leave first. He won't dare to kill me." She knew that He-Sha wanted to use her to keep Yetion here. However, she was confident that He-Sha wouldn't dare to kill her. "Ninth Princess, you're very smart. This king indeed doesn't dare to kill you." He-Sha smiled coldly and said, "However, if this human kid dares to run away, this king can only vent his anger on you. At that time, you'll have to hold on." "He-Sha, you're despicable." Mushi's pretty face sank, and she roared, "He-Sha, the person you want to kill is me. It has nothing to do with the Ninth Princess." Yetion frowned, and he roared in a deep voice, "Don't you want to keep me here? Then I'll fight with you." "Good." He-Sha laughed wildly and said loudly, "Human kid, you have guts. Just because of your guts, He-Sha, won't hurt the Ninth Princess." With that, He-Sha pushed out his palm, and Mushi's figure was sent flying tens of thousands of meters away. The corner of He-Sha's mouth curled into a cold smile, and he said with a mischievous smile, "Come on, let me see how capable a human with guts like you is." "Good." Yetion glanced at Mushi. Then his eyes flickered, and a strong desire to fight appeared in his eyes. Even though he knew that he wasn't He-Sha's match, he still wanted to fight with his life on the line. He-Sha felt the fighting spirit from Yetion, and he laughed loudly. "What a good human kid. You know you can't win, but you still want to fight. This king admires your courage." The corner of Yetion's mouth twitched, and the black runes around him surged crazily. His aura was like a mountain in the sea, and his entire body was like a giant sword that stood in the water. Yetion's expression was a bit strange at the moment. His resolute eyes were filled with a sinister aura, as if he was brewing something. Backwater frost, backwater sacrifice. At this moment, He-Sha's figure moved, and he directly struck with his palm. The water around him surged crazily, and suddenly, a terrible black blade appeared. It roared, and like a rolling black dragon, it suddenly rushed over. At the same time, Yetion's figure also moved. The 9 dragon veins in his body revolved crazily, and his whole body surged with majestic dragon chi. A sea of red lightning appeared behind him, and a giant red dragon that was thousands of meters long appeared. Roar! The moment the giant red dragon appeared, the dragon's roar shook the sky, piercing the clouds and breaking the waves. The next moment, the giant red dragon rolled out and actually rushed over, and Yetion's figure rushed over together with the giant dragon. Seeing Yetion rushing over, He-Sha couldn't help but frown, and his expression changed. He thought to himself, "Is this kid going to commit suicide?" Rumble. After which, the black blade slammed into the giant red dragon, and a destructive force erupted forth. The body of the giant red dragon actually started to crumble, and it was uncontrollably torn apart. Yetion stood on the back of the giant red dragon, and at the same time, the violet lightning battle armor was activated. His silhouette was like a bolt of lightning as he dashed towards He-Sha. "Has this brat gone mad?" He-Sha frowned when he saw Yetion's silhouette. His countenance involuntarily changed, and a look of terror appeared on his face. Yetion forcibly rushed over, and his surroundings were filled with violent waves of chi. The astral shield and violet lightning battle armor on his body started to crumble bit by bit, and the boundless force directly slammed into his body, causing bloody wounds to appear on his skin. Chapter 2072. Nyetian. Mushi's delicate face stiffened when she saw Nyetian desperately approaching Heisha from afar. She had no idea what Nyetian was trying to do. At this moment, Nyetian was less than 100 meters away from Heisha. If the latter suddenly attacked, he would definitely die. Heisha was also stunned by Nyetian's actions. His eyes couldn't help but tremble as an ominous premonition arose in his heart. Nyetian's figure was still approaching Heisha. The skin on his body was cracking. Even he couldn't bear the violent impact. However, at this moment, the corner of his mouth suddenly twitched. With a thought, his eyes flickered. Suddenly, a huge mental deterrence appeared and shrouded Heisha. Heisha's eyes trembled. He suddenly realized that something was wrong, but it was too late. The moment the mental deterrence descended, Heisha's mind trembled and his eyes turned dull. Now, at the same time, Nyetian's gloomy eyes shone with a piercing light as he unleashed his sword power. His blood aura merged with his sword intent, and his divine and devil power burst forth in an instant. He slashed out with the Star Heaven Slash, and a deadly sword shadow appeared. Like a lofty mountain, it slashed down towards Heisha. At this moment, Heisha's divine sense had been lost. He was like a walking corpse. He could only rely on the defense of his physical body to resist Nyetian's deadly sword. However, Nyetian's sword not only fused with the eruption of blood chi, but also the demonic and divine power. He had even used his most terrifying demonic and divine intent. Under normal circumstances, Heisha would have no problem resisting this sword with all his strength. However, it was impossible for Heisha to resist this sword without any defense. Without a doubt, Heisha would die without a doubt when this deadly sword fell. Nyetian knew that he wasn't Heisha's match in a head-on battle. Therefore, his mental attack would be his greatest killing move. He desperately approached Heisha in order to release absolute confinement at the best moment. Even in his wildest dreams, Heisha would never have imagined that, in addition to his heaven-defying and powerful martial body, Nyetian could also use mental attacks. Boom! The violent and terrifying sword strike contained great momentum. Once it landed, Heisha would be left without a corpse. When Mushi saw this scene from afar, her entire person was petrified, not daring to believe her eyes at all. Was one of the three notorious villains of the three great demon clans really going to die under the sword of Nyetian? Just as the killing blow was about to land, something strange happened. "Don't kill him." A horrified voice sounded, and the surrounding water layer trembled strangely. Then, a huge hand appeared and wrapped around Heisha. Boom! In the next instant, the shadow of the sword fell and bombarded the giant hand, stirring up violent waves of air. At the same time, Heisha came to his senses. His body shook, and a layer of spiky scales appeared all over his body. The violent waves of air hit Heisha's body and sent him flying, but it did not hurt him. Heisha stabilized his body and looked at Nyetian, who was like a bloody man in the water. His face was filled with horror, and he could not help but gasp. The scene just now was too thrilling, and he almost died in the hands of Nyetian. Nyetian's figure stood there, and blood was flowing all over his body. He was extremely weak, and his body was swaying, as if he would collapse at any time. That sword strike just now had exhausted all his strength, and his blood chi had been severely consumed. At this moment, his entire person was in a state of exhaustion. However, Nyetian was still standing and did not collapse. His pair of eyes stared at the unfamiliar figure in front of him. This person looked very similar to Heisha, but the aura of his body was much stronger than Heisha's. It was this person who had saved Heisha at the crucial moment. At this moment, this person was also looking at Nyetian with a very nervous expression, and there was even a trace of concern in his eyes. Nyetian. Mushi's figure appeared and supported Nyetian. She could feel that Nyetian's aura was extremely weak, and she asked with a trembling voice, "Are you okay?" Nyetian shook his head slightly, and his hand secretly moved, preparing to let Di Shirtion come out. The person who suddenly appeared in front of him was obviously also a member of the Black-Scale Demon clan, and his strength was not below Heisha's. If he did not let Di Shirtion come out now, Nyetian and Mu, she would definitely not be this person's opponent. Moreover, Heisha had only suffered a slight injury, and it did not affect his combat strength. However, an unexpected scene happened next. The person suddenly turned around, looked at Heisha, and growled in a deep voice, "Old 3, what's going on?" He was actually very angry. "Big brother, I was wrong." Heisha had already calmed down at this moment. He glanced at Nyetian and said, "I just wanted to test his strength. I didn't expect this guy to be so desperate, and actually almost killed me. Fortunately, Big Brother came in time, otherwise I would have really died in the hands of this kid." When Nyetian heard Heisha's words, his eyes couldn't help but narrow, and his expression was very strange. Heisha's attack just now was actually to test Nyetian's strength. You are the Black-Scale Crown Prince." Mushi was also stunned at this time, and her beautiful eyes couldn't help but flicker. Her small face looked at the person beside Heisha in astonishment. Heisha called this person Big Brother. Then his identity was the Black-Scale Demon Clan's Crown Prince. Heikuin. Mushi didn't expect that the dignified Black-Scale Demon Clan's Crown Prince would actually appear here. Heikuin nodded and admitted his identity. He then took a step forward, approached Nyetian, and said, "You recall Nyetian, right? What happened just now was my third brother's fault. I apologize to you on his behalf." Nyetian looked at Heikuin, couldn't help but frown, and said solemnly, "What's going on?" From Heisha's words just now, it seemed that he didn't come here to kill Nyetian, and the reason why he attacked just now was to test Nyetian's strength. "Third brother, explain it yourself." Heikuin turned to look at Heisha and directly reprimanded him. Heisha's face stiffened for a moment, and then he came to Nyetian's side. After taking a deep breath, he slightly bowed and said, "Mr. Nyetian, I have offended you just now. Please don't blame me." Nyetian knitted his eyebrows tightly. The attitude of the two brothers, Heikuin and Heisha, had almost confused him. "Mr. Nyetian, I did come for you, but not to kill you. I just want to invite you to see someone." Heisha said with an awkward smile. "Invite me to see someone? Who?" Nyetian's eyes flickered, and he asked, "Mr. Nyetian, to be honest, my clan's high priest wants to see you." Heikuin took a step forward, bowed, and said in a very respectful manner, "High Priestess Black-Scale." Mushi couldn't help but cry out when she heard that someone wanted to see Nyetian, and her small face stiffened. Nyetian glanced at Mushi, and the latter's reaction undoubtedly showed that the High Priest was an extraordinary person. The Black-Scale Demon clan was somewhat different from other ancient clans. In their clan, the person with the highest status was not the clan leader, but the High Priest. Therefore, the status of the High Priest was actually higher than that of the Black-Scale Emperor. Chapter 2073. Why does your High Priest want to see me? Nyetian became much colder. The blood on his body gradually dissipated, but his face was still pale. Although he didn't know who the High Priest was, judging from Heikuin and Heisha's current attitude and Mushi's reaction, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Otherwise, the Heikuin and Heisha brothers wouldn't be so respectful to him. "We don't know either." Heisha smiled bitterly and said, "I was just curious as to why the High Priest wanted to see you. That's why I tried to test your strength. But you are indeed much stronger than the average human martial artist. If my big brother hadn't appeared in time, I would have died in your hands." Heisha's words were from the bottom of his heart. He originally just wanted to have a casual spar with Nyetian, but he didn't expect the latter's combat strength to be far beyond his imagination. Nyetian glanced at Heisha coldly and didn't say much. Instead, he turned to Heikuin and said, "Your Highness Heisha, do I have to see your High Priest?" "Yes." Heikuin nodded slightly and said, "But the High Priest told me not to force you. But he asked me to tell you that he knows what you are looking for, and he knows where it is." "Huh?" Nyetian frowned, and his face suddenly sank. He was very surprised. He was indeed looking for something, but how did the High Priest know about it? The High Priest obviously told Heikuin to tell Nyetian these words to hint something to Nyetian. Don't tell me that the High Priestess knows that I'm here and that I'm looking for the dragon's spring vein? Nyetion speculated inwardly. He had a feeling that something was very strange and that there must be something behind this. Mr. Nyetion, have you thought about it? Do you want to see the High Priest with us? Heikuin smiled faintly and asked confidently. In his opinion, Nyetion had no reason to refuse. Where's the High Priestess? Nyetion asked, smiling. If the Blackscale High Priest was outside the Myriad Devil Abyss, then Nyetion would definitely not meet him. The High Priest is in the Demon Abyss, and he is not far from us. Heikuin smiled and nodded. What? Your High Priest also came to the Myriad Degrees Devil Abyss? Mushi's eyes flickered, and she couldn't help exclaiming. She had never imagined that the black-scaled monstrous clan's High Priest would actually be in the Myriad Degrees Demon Abyss. Yes. Heikuin nodded and said, to tell you the truth, the High Priest is here for Mr. Nyetion. Oh. Nyetion was surprised, but he soon smiled and said, it seems that your High Priest values me very much. Of course. Heisha couldn't help but interject. Otherwise, Big Brother and I wouldn't have personally come to look for you. Heikuin glared at Heisha. Then he looked at Nyetion and said, Mr. Nyetion, your identity as a human has been exposed. Now, everyone in the Myriad Degrees Demon Abyss who is participating in the Battle of the Nine Races is chasing after you. If you come with us to see the High Priest, we can at least guarantee your safety. All right, since you've said so, I have no reason to refuse. Nyetion smiled and said to Mushi, Ninth Princess, let's go see the Blackscale High Priest. Mushi nodded. She would follow Nyetion wherever he went. Nyetion consumed a few divine elixirs, and his pale face turned slightly better. He was about to leave. Careful. However, right at this moment, Mushi suddenly cried out. Almost at the same time, Heikuin also noticed something. His expression suddenly changed, and his body instantly turned into a huge black fish that was a few hundred meters long. He directly rushed towards Nyetion. Swoosh! In the next moment, a black blade appeared in the water. It was extremely fast and was aimed at Nyetion. Bang! Just as the black blade was about to hit Nyetion, Heikuin arrived and used its huge body to block a fatal attack for Nyetion. Nyetion frowned, and his eyes trembled. It was really dangerous just now. Fortunately, Heikuin appeared in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. One had to admit that Heikuin's defense was really terrifying. It used its body to block the black blade. Nyetion could feel the sharpness of the black blade. Even if he was in his best condition, he might not be able to block it. Mr. Nyetion, are you all right? Heikuin stabilized its body and returned to its human form. It looked at Nyetion nervously and asked. Nyetion smiled, indicating that he was fine. Then, he looked behind him and saw a blurry dark figure appear in his vision. Someone from the Dark Goblin tribe. Nyetion's face darkened. Although he could not see the person's face clearly, he could at least tell that the person who attacked him was from the Dark Goblin tribe. Anyuli. Heikuin looked at the blurry figure and frowned, calling out his name. One of the three evildoers. Mushi's eyes trembled when she heard the name. Anyuli, like Heisha, was also one of the three evildoers of the three great demon tribe. Nyetion looked at Anyuli and guessed that this person should be related to the Dark Goblin tribes in Yumeng. Heikuin, what are you doing? Anyuli said in a deep voice. A cold and gloomy aura surged from his body. He is a human. Don't you know that? He was very curious. Why would Heikuin protect a human? I know very well what I'm doing. Heikuin smiled cold and gestured for Nyetion and Mushi to step back. He was very familiar with Anyuli and knew how terrifying he was. Heikuin, are you people of the Blackscale Demon tribe crazy? You are actually stupid enough to protect a human. At this time, another voice came from the water. Then, a figure covered in scabs appeared and looked at Heikuin strangely. Shuehen. Heikuin looked at the figure in front of him and frowned. His face darkened. Mushi's face stiffened when she heard the name Shuehen. She opened her mouth but could not say anything. Shuehen's identity was the same as Heisha and Anyuli. He was also one of the three evildoers, Heisha, Yoli, and Shuehen. The three evildoers of the three great demon tribe actually appeared in the same place. This was a very rare scene. Nietion looked at Yoli and Shuehen from afar. His eyes couldn't help but flicker. He had already sensed that the aura of the two was very strong. They were not weaker than the Hei Kuan and Heisha brothers. Moreover, the two of them were very aggressive. It was obvious that they were coming for him. We of the Black-Scale Demon Tribe don't need to explain to you what we want to do. Heisha moved and came to Hei Kuan's side. His aura surged, and he was ready to fight at any time. It seems that you two brothers are going to fight us for this human. And Yoli said in a cold voice with a strong sense of threat, "If you want to fight, then fight. Do you think we of the Black-Scale Demon Tribe are afraid of you?" Heisha growled with a trace of excitement in his eyes. Chapter 2074. And Yoli and Shuehen looked at each other. Obviously, they did not expect that the Black Kuan and Black Sharp brothers would really turn against them to protect Nietion. The two of them couldn't figure out what Nietion had done to make the Black-Scale demons protect him at the risk of falling out with the other two demon clans. Not only them, but even Nietion himself was also very confused. What kind of orders did High Priest Blackscales give to Black Kuan and Black Shark to make them protect him so diligently? At this time, the Black Kuan looked at Yoli and Shuehen coldly and said, "Yoli, Shuehen, if you want to kill Mr. Nietion, you will have to step over our dead bodies first." The voice was cold but very firm, showing the Black Kuan's determination to protect Nietion. At any cost, do not let anything happen to that human warrior. The High Priest's words echoed in the Black Kuan's mind, and his eyes became more resolute. He was a member of the Black-Scale Demon Tribe and hated humans very much. However, he would never disobey the Black-Scale High Priest's order, so even if he died today, he must protect Nietion. Black Kuan, since you two are so stubborn, don't blame us for being ruthless. Shuehen sneered and directly shouted to Yoli, "Do it!" Yoli nodded in response. His silhouette flickered as he attacked. Boundless dark aura surged around him, and the surrounding water was shrouded in darkness. The space within tens of thousands of meters was immediately plunged into darkness. Bounded domain. Nietion suddenly felt the aura in the surrounding space change. He could not help but exclaim in his heart, and his face immediately changed. Black Kuan, Black Shark, you two brothers are very strong. Unfortunately, in my silent night bounded domain, your strength will be greatly suppressed. I want to see if the bloodline power of the Black-Scale Demon Tribe can break my bounded domain. And Yoli's voice sounded in the water, revealing a very oppressive aura. Isn't it just a broken bounded domain? Your grandpa, Heisha, doesn't even put you in my eyes. Heisha's voice resounded. Surprisingly, he was not afraid at all. Instead, he was extremely arrogant. Heisha roared and turned into a huge black shark. His body was several hundred meters long. He suddenly rolled, and the surrounding water began to shake violently. Nietion relied on the powerful perception of the holographic sacred glyphs to pay close attention to the battle within the barrier. He had seen the black kraken transform into a big black fish before, and the black shark transform into a flood shark at this moment. It seemed that the bloodline power of the black-scale demonic tribe was the ability that allowed them to freely change their beast form and human form. The beastly forms of the black-scaled monstrous clansmen were extremely powerful. Even though their bodies were not large after their beastly forms, their beastly bodies were exceptionally powerful. They were definitely comparable to divine beasts. Die! When Shuehen saw the transformed Heisha, he directly roared. A dark red long sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed down. The blood-red sword intent condensed into a terrible sword shadow and blasted towards Heisha. Heisha was not afraid at all. He rolled up and resisted Shuehen's sword. A several-meter-deep wound appeared on his back, and blood gushed out. The moment he approached Shuehen, he swung his huge tail, and a violent wave rushed out. Shuehen's figure was forced to retreat. His chest was seriously injured, and he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. The strength of Shuehen and Heisha was about the same. The first exchange was very bloody. On the other side, the Black Kraken and Inyuli also began to fight. A terrible wave surged in all directions, and the entire space was shaking violently. Nyetian, what should we do? Mushi saw the four people fighting in the bounded domain and couldn't help but ask Nyetian. At this moment, she had an idea in her mind, and that was to leave directly. Since the four of them were fighting fiercely, it was a good opportunity to leave now. Nyetian looked at the four figures in the bounded domain and frowned. He could indeed leave now, but this was equivalent to leaving the Black Kraken and Black Shark brothers behind. Although Heisha and Nyetian were a little unhappy, he didn't have any evil intentions. Moreover, the two of them were protecting Nyetian. If he just left like this, it would be somewhat unreasonable. More importantly, Nyetian also wanted to see the High Priest of the Black Scale Demon race. He had a feeling that the High Priest must be looking for him because of the Dragon Spring Vein. Ninth Princess, do you have any way to help me quickly recover my strength? Nyetian thought for a moment and asked Mushi. Mushi was stunned for a moment. Then, her eyes trembled and she said, "You want to help?" Nyetian nodded and explained, "The Black Kraken and Black Shark strength is not much different from Inyuli and Shuehen's. It will be difficult to determine the winner in a short period of time. However, their battle will attract others. If they continue to fight, it will be troublesome when others arrive." Mushi looked at Nyetian with a flicker in her eyes. She was a little hesitant, as if she was thinking about something. Nyetian didn't know what Mushi was thinking, so he couldn't rush her. After a moment, Mushi took a deep breath and opened her palm. A green liquid gushed out from her palm and quickly condensed into a green ball of light. It was crystal clear and released an extremely strong aura of life. "What is this?" Nyetian looked at the green ball of light in Mushi's hand and asked. "This is the essence of the magnificent wood." Mushi extended her palm and said, "It is the essence of the spirit liquid condensed from the divine tree of our Wood Elf race. In the Wood Elf race, only the Wood Elf King has the right to enjoy the essence of the magnificent wood. You want to give me the essence of the magnificent wood?" When Nyetian heard Mushi's words, he couldn't help but tremble and ask in surprise. Only the Wood Elf King had the right to enjoy it, but Mushi wanted to give it to Nyetian. How could the latter not be surprised? "Yes." Mushi nodded and handed the essence of the magnificent wood to Nyetian. She said, "This essence of the magnificent wood was given to me by Father. He told me to give it to you at the appropriate time. I feel that now is the appropriate time." Nyetian was stunned for a moment, then immediately reacted. After receiving the essence of the magnificent wood, he swallowed it without hesitation. Since it was something that Mu Xiangshan had given him, it would be a waste not to accept it. The moment the essence of the magnificent wood entered his body, Nyetian immediately felt an incomparably fervent power appear. It rushed into his limbs and meridians, causing him to involuntarily let out a cry of surprise. Then, the essence of the magnificent would turned into an unending stream of power that flowed through Nyetian's body. His martial body, which had already been exhausted, instantly recovered. In the blink of an eye, Nyetian felt a boundless power surging through his body. His blood chi and strength suddenly became abundant. Boom! At this moment, Nyetian's body slightly shook. His entire body released a powerful aura, causing his entire body to reveal a different aura. Nyetian suddenly felt something. His eyes suddenly narrowed, and his expression stiffened as he said in a daze, I broke through." Chapter 2075. Nyetian suddenly felt his aura explode. He immediately understood that his strength had increased. The essence of the magnificence was the essence condensed from the Wood Elf's divine tree. After consuming it, Nyetian's strength went from mid-over-god to late-over-god. Actually, Nyetian's strength had already been at the peak of mid-over-god before this. He was showing signs of breaking through to late-over-god. He just needed a little more time. The essence of the magnificence provided his martial body with tremendous power, helping him break through to late over God. No wonder Mu Xiangshan was so strong, and his senses were freakish. It was probably the effect of consuming the essence of the magnificence would all the time. Nie Tian, you. Mushi also sensed the change in Nie Tian's aura. Her face froze slightly, and she was so shocked that she couldn't finish her sentence. She had given the essence of the magnificence would to Nie Tian so that he could recover his strength quickly. She never thought that not only would he recover his strength, but he would also increase it miraculously. Mushi had been worried that Nie Tian's martial body wouldn't be able to absorb the essence of the magnificence wood, but now it seemed that she had been thinking too much. She didn't even know what the attribute of Nie Tian's martial body was. Why did she feel that Nie Tian could absorb the power of any attribute? It was very strange. Nie Tian's strength had increased, and he was rather excited. He smiled at Mushi and said, "Ninth Princess, please step back for now." Mushi nodded slightly and retreated several thousand meters away, looking at Nie Tian from afar. Nie Tian looked at the barrier in front of him. He Kuan and the other three were still fighting intensely. His lips curled up slightly, and violent black runes surged out of his body. His aura suddenly exploded, and his strength rose to late over God level. The three great forbidden arts had increased his strength by an entire realm. Mushi saw this scene from afar, and her small face was shocked to the extreme. She couldn't believe her eyes, and her small mouth opened wide, yet she couldn't say a word. She couldn't imagine what was in Nie Tian's body that could increase his strength by an entire realm in an instant. Can the secluded night, bounded domain block my sword? The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and a strange smile appeared on his face. Shortly after, the starlight heavenly slash appeared in his hand, and the sword intent around him surged. At the same time, countless strands of divine and demonic energy circulated and fused with the sword intent, forming the divine and demonic sword intent. Now that his strength had reached late over God, 1,000 strands of the power of the 9,000 gods and demons in Nie Tian's body had awakened. The power of the fiend gods had a special impact on barriers. It was extremely terrifying. Boom! In the next moment, Nie Tian didn't hesitate at all and directly slashed out with his sword. The moment the demon god's sword shadow fell, the huge barrier directly shook, and immediately after, countless cracks in the shape of a spider web appeared on the barrier, instantly spreading out. Not good. Within the secluded night enchantment, and Yuli suddenly sensed something. His face changed, and he could not help but cry out. "Dying!" At this moment, Heisha roared out and charged over with his huge body. The shaking barrier finally could not endure it anymore and collapsed loudly. Bang! Black Shark's body was like a mountain, directly pressing down on Grimgloom. Damn it! And Yuli's eyes trembled. With a single movement, he turned into a black mist and directly disappeared into the water. When Heisha saw this, he stabilized himself and returned to his human form. Yet Tian frowned slightly when he saw this from afar. He became cautious. He knew that the people of the Dark Demon race were most skilled at hiding, and Yu Li's sudden disappearance was an extremely dangerous sign. Third brother, protect Mr. Nie Tian. Heikuan also noticed in Yu Li's disappearance and called out. All right, Heisha replied. With a single movement, he charged towards Nie Tian. It's too late. At that moment, a cold, grim voice suddenly rang out. Immediately afterwards, a sharp black blade whizzed out, carrying a fierce killing intent as it slashed directly towards Nie Tian. Watch out! The sudden scene caused Heisha to be startled, and then he cried out in fear. He wanted to act, but it was too late. Nie Tian suddenly felt a cold aura appear behind him, causing his heart to tremble. This was a threatening aura, and also the aura of death. In an instant, Nie Tian's body shook, and the Star Soul Shield and the lightning purple heaven battle armor were activated at the same time. Bang! Immediately after, the black blade directly fell, bombarding the purple lightning condensed battle armor, making a muffled sound. Nie Tian's figure retreated a few hundred meters, and then he stood steadily, not injured. However, his star soul shield and lightning purple heavenly battle armor were shattered by the attacks. That was close. Nietian took a deep breath, and his expression became much calmer. Luckily, he was prepared and activated his defense in an instant. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. That attack, just now, was obviously not his full strength. It was only a sneak attack to catch Nietian off guard. He did not think that Nietian would have predicted it. Human brat, you're much smarter than I thought. It seems that I've underestimated you. His eyes were as deep as the night as he stared at Nietian. The corner of Nietian's mouth curled up, and a strange smile appeared on his face. He said in a low voice, "You've underestimated me more than just a little." Feeling the murderous intent in Nietian's eyes, Anyo Lee was taken aback. He then laughed and said, "Brat, don't tell me you want to kill me. Since you want to kill me, why can't I kill you?" Nietian laughed. At this moment, he really did want to kill Anyo Lee. Since the other party wanted to kill him, how could he not retaliate? But in Anyo Lee's eyes, Nietian's idea of killing him was simply laughable. He was from the Dark Demon tribe, and his forte lay in concealment. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that if he wanted to leave, no one would be able to find his shadow. What a joke! Anyo Lee sneered, his eyes filled with disdain. Human brat, it seems that you don't understand the Dark Demon tribe at all. In the myriad degrees demon abyss, not to mention you, even the strongest humans can forget about killing a member of the Dark Demon tribe. The Dark Demon tribe was proficient in concealment, especially in the depths of the myriad degrees demon abyss. They could conceal themselves at any time, anywhere. Wanting to kill a member of the Dark Demon tribe was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. "Mr. Nietian, let me deal with him." At this moment, Heisha's silhouette came to Nietian's side, looking nervously at Anyo Lee. He knew how powerful the latter was, so he didn't dare to be careless. "Human brat, I want to see just what kind of tricks you have to kill me." Anyo Lee sneered and once again disappeared into a cloud of black mist. "Watch out!" Heisha became even more nervous when he saw Anyo Lee disappear. "Brat, you can't even find me. Let's see how you're going to kill me." In the chaotic and dark water layer, a dark and sharp voice rang out. It seemed to be coming from all directions. It was very strange. Chapter 2076. Nietian's sword was very decisive. Before Heisha could even react, he had already stabbed out, as if he could clearly see Yu Li's figure. Then a strange scene happened. Bang! A muffled sound suddenly came from the water. Nietian's sword seemed to have hit something. What followed was a miserable shriek. And Yoli's figure appeared, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth and a bloody wound on his chest. His eyes were filled with fear as he looked at Nietian. What's going on?" Heisha was stunned by the scene in front of him and asked in shock. Just now, Nietian's sword strike had actually hit Darkly and even seriously injured him. This was simply unbelievable. Mu Shi, who was in the distance, was also stunned. She looked at Nietian in disbelief. Even she couldn't sense in Yu Li's position. So how could Nietian hit Yu Li? It was obvious that Nietian's sword was not based on luck. He really could see Yu Li. "This is impossible." And Yu Li reacted and cried out in alarm. "How can you see me?" He was very confident in his concealment methods, but he could not explain what had just happened. What ability did Nietian use to discover his existence? "You think your concealment methods are very clever?" The corner of Nietian's mouth raised into a faint smile. He said coldly, "In my opinion, the Dark Demon clan is only SOSO. Nietian had fought with many people who were good at concealment, and he had a special method that could completely subdue them. That was the Starry Sky Ancient Martial Techniques Mark of Star Dream. Mark of Star Dream was a spiritual seal equivalent to a mark. As long as the mark was left, the lurker would have nowhere to hide. When Yu Li's sneak attacked Nietian, the latter had already prepared Mark of Star Dream and successfully left a mark on Yu Li's body. Mark of Star Dream would remain on Yu Li's body for at least a few hours before slowly disappearing. In this period of time, it was impossible for Yu Li to hide in front of Nietian. "Stinking brat. I don't believe you can see me." Yuli roared. His silhouette flickered, and he once again turned into a cloud of black fog and disappeared. Nyetian frowned, and a cold, killing intent appeared in his eyes. He said with a heavy heart, "Since you're courting death, don't blame me." And Yuli's figure lurked in the dark water, like a beast hibernating in the abyss, ready to unleash a fatal blow at any time. However, it was a pity that Nyetian could see him very clearly. Perhaps it was because he was too confident in his concealment methods, and Yuli was actually approaching Nyetian. Courting death. Nyetian stood where he was, the corners of his mouth curled up coldly. The aura of his entire body rose to the extreme in an instant. He directly struck out with his sword, and a terrifying sword shadow appeared, blasting towards Yuli. No. And Yuli's eyes trembled, and his expression suddenly changed as he cried out in fear. He reacted in an instant, and a cloud of black gas surged out of his body, condensing into a shield that wrapped around his entire body. But at this moment, the terrifying sword shadow suddenly fell, and the shield around Yuli's body was directly shattered, and his figure directly flew out. I've been hit again." Heisha was stunned, and looked at Nyetian in a daze. If there were people who suspected that Nyetian was just trying his luck, then this sword undoubtedly proved that Nyetian could definitely clearly see in Yuli's existence. On the other side, Heikuin and Shuehen were both stunned, and looked at Nyetian with a strange look. "Stinking brat, you puff." And Yuli's body stabilized, and his whole body was dripping with blood. He looked at Nyetian in horror, and before he could finish his sentence, he violently spat out a mouthful of blood. "Now, do you know how I'll kill you?" Nyetian said coldly, looking at Yuli. Although his mouth was mocking, Nyetian was very surprised. He didn't expect Yuli's martial body to be so strong. And Yuli had been hit by Nyetian's sword twice, and yet he was still alive. It was enough to show the strength of his martial body. Nyetian's current strength was that of a late-stage paramount god. If it was an ordinary warrior at the peak of the paramount god realm, they probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a single sword strike from him. The martial body of a member of the demon clan was indeed much stronger than that of a human. Nyetian didn't know that among the three great demon clans, the dark demon clan's martial body wasn't the strongest. In fact, it was the weakest. The dark demon clan, the blood demon clan, and the black-scale demon clan were the three great ancient demon clans. The black-scale demon clan had the strongest martial body, followed by the blood demon clan, and finally the dark demon clan. Even so, the martial body of a member of the dark demon clan was far stronger than that of a human warrior of the same level. And Yuli's eyes trembled as he looked at Nyetian. He finally believed that Nyetian could sense his presence. However, he still couldn't figure out how Nyetian was able to sense his aura. Damn it! And Yuli cursed and moved, preparing to leave. It was impossible to kill Nyetian in this situation. There was no point in staying, so it was better to leave as soon as possible. And Yuli's body moved quickly, and he turned into a cloud of black mist and disappeared. Nyetian looked on calmly and didn't try to stop him. With his current strength, it wouldn't be easy to kill Yuli. Heikuin, you black-scale demon clan will pay for protecting a human. Seeing that Yuli had left, Bloodscar didn't stay any longer. He threw down a threat and left. Heikuin looked in the direction where Bloodscar disappeared. His face was gloomy, as if he was thinking about something. In fact, he was also very confused. Why did the High Priest want to protect a human? Didn't Nyetian have some special meaning to the black-scale demon clan? Mr. Nyetian, are you okay? Heikuin didn't think too much. His figure moved, and he came to Nyetian's side and asked. Nyetian smiled faintly, indicating that he was fine. Mr. Nyetian, I, Heisha, have never admired anyone, but you are too powerful. I, Heisha, admire you. Heisha looked at Nyetian and said with some excitement. He had never seen anyone who could sense the aura of the Dark Demon Clan, but Nyetian had done it. He couldn't help but admire him. More importantly, Nyetian had almost killed him before. Nyetian smiled and nodded, but didn't say anything. After the battle, just now, He had seen the strength of the three great demon clans. He knew that He Kuan, He Sha, Bloodscar, and Inyuli were all young cultivators in the three great demon clans. Of course, they weren't the strongest, but if they were in the 9 major realms, they would definitely be very terrifying existences. Nietian estimated that He Kuan and the others' battle prowess was about the same as Guiwu Quangsha. Moreover, when He Kuan and He Sha transformed into their beast forms, their auras were very terrifying. Nietian could feel that even if he used all his strength, he wouldn't be able to hurt He Kuan and He Sha in their beast forms. Even if he became a late overgod and used the 3 forbidden skills to reach the late paramount god level, it would still be very difficult for him to fight an expert like He Kuan head-on. Chapter 2077. Niet Tian, He Kuan, and the others walked in the deep waters of the demonic abyss. They were not fast. About half an hour later, they came to an underwater valley. Mr. Niet Tian, the high priest, is in the valley. Please. He Kuan stopped and pointed to the valley. Niet Tian was stunned for a moment. Then he asked with a smile, "Your Highness, aren't you going in with me?" He Kuan bowed slightly and said, "The high priest said that only Mr. Niet Tian is allowed to enter." "No, I want to enter with Niet Tian." Mushi objected before He Kuan finished his sentence. "Ninth Princess, I'm afraid your request cannot be fulfilled. Mr. Niet Tian must enter alone." He Kuan glanced at Mushi. He was not angry, but his voice was very cold and threatening. Mushi still wanted to say something, but she was stopped by Niet Tian. The latter laughed and said, "Ninth Princess, let me go see the High Priestess alone. Don't worry, I will be fine." Mushi's deep blue eyes flickered, but she nodded in agreement. Niet Tian smiled faintly and walked into the valley. The moment he stepped into the dark valley, Niet Tian felt a strong pressure coming from all directions, making it impossible for him to dodge. He could only endure it. The pressure here is so strong. I feel like I can't breathe. Eyebrows furrowed, Niet Tian was taken aback. At the same time, he carefully observed his surroundings, taking every step with extreme caution. After a while, Niet Tian saw a narrow tunnel in front of him after walking for a few hundred meters. "Come in." Niet Tian went blank for a moment. At that moment, a clear, cold voice rang out from the tunnel. He frowned, and then he smiled. His entire body became much more relaxed as he stepped into the passageway. The person he was about to meet was the high priest of the Black Speckle tribe. If such a powerful person wanted to hurt him, he would not be able to resist, so he might as well enter. Soon, Niet Tian reached the end of the tunnel, and a huge cave appeared in front of him. In the depths of the cave stood a black-robed figure. Niet Tian suddenly looked up and was stunned when he saw the appearance of the person in front of him. The person in front of him was a skinny old man who was looking at him with a smile. "What? Does my appearance surprise you?" Seeing that Niet Tian was stunned, the skinny old man smiled faintly and asked jokingly. Niet Tian nodded and said, "The high priest's appearance is indeed different from what I expected." He had originally thought that the high priest must be covered in scales like the black Kuan, black shark, and the others, and his appearance was very different from that of a human. However, the person in front of him looked like a human martial artist. Even his aura was the same as that of a human martial artist. It was obvious that the person in front of him was not a member of the Black-Scale Demon tribe. Who said that the high priest of the Black-Scale Demon tribe must be a member of the Black-Scale Demon tribe? The high priest smiled faintly and walked over step by step. He looked at Niet Tian with his sharp eyes. The expression on his face kept changing. No one knew what he was thinking. Niet Tian smiled awkwardly. He was surprised that the high priest of the Black-Scale Demon tribe was not a member of the Black-Scale Demon tribe. However, what made him even more embarrassed was that the high priest looked at him with a strange expression, as if he was looking for something on his body. "Lord High Priest, have you seen enough?" After a while, Niet Tian could not help asking. The high priest looked up and laughed. "There are many things on you that surprise me. That's why I couldn't help but look at you. Please don't take offense." Niet Tian was speechless. Then he said, "Lord High Priest, since you want to see me, you must have something for me. Please just say it." The high priest in front of him was not only very different from what Nyetian had imagined, but his behavior was also very unexpected. Nyetian had originally thought that the high priestess would be the kind of person who covered her face with a black robe and stood there motionlessly, giving off a strong aura. However, the old man in front of him did not have such an aura. Instead, he looked a bit wretched, especially his small eyes, which gave people the feeling that he was up to no good. It was hard to understand how someone like that could be the high priest of the Black-Scale Demon tribe. However, the high priest's aura was very strong. He was definitely a peak paramount god, which was similar to the top experts from the Nine Realms. Instead of answering directly, the high priest smiled wretchedly and said, "Don't worry, little brother. How should I address you?" Nyetian frowned and replied coldly, "My name is Nyetian." "Nyetian, that's a good name." The high priest nodded and smiled. "My name is Huadong. Lord High Priest, why are you looking for me?" Nyetian was a bit impatient. He did not care what the high priest's name was. "Nyetian, I do have something to talk to you about." Huadong did not get angry because of Nyetian's impatience. Instead, he smiled and said, "There is something on you that I am very interested in. I want to know where you got it from." "What is it?" Nyetian's eyes flickered when he saw Huadong's expression, and his expression became vigilant. "A ring." Huadong's eyes narrowed, and his expression became much more serious. He said in a deep voice, "The spiritual dragon royal ring. Spirit dragon emperor ring." Upon hearing these words, Nyetian couldn't help but frown, and his expression suddenly changed. He had never expected that Huadong would be interested in the spiritual dragon royal ring. He had originally thought that Huadong had sensed the origin energy or the supreme demonic fire in his body. He did not expect Huadong to sense the spiritual dragon royal ring. The spiritual dragon royal ring was a ring that Nyetian had obtained in the 3,000 small worlds. After entering the realm, he rarely used the spiritual dragon royal ring because his opponents were too strong. Even if he used the spiritual dragon royal ring, it would not be of much use. Gradually, he even forgot about the spiritual dragon royal ring. If Huadong had not mentioned it, he would not have remembered the spiritual dragon royal ring. Yes, the spiritual dragon royal ring. Huadong nodded heavily. His eyes surged with a blazing divine light as he said, "I want to know, where did you get the spirit dragon sovereign ring?" Nyetian looked at Huadong and could not help but frown. He finally knew why Huadong had looked for him. It turned out that Huadong had sensed the aura of the spiritual dragon royal ring. However, the spiritual dragon royal ring was a secret. Why would Huadong sense the existence of the spiritual dragon royal ring? Could Huadong be related to the spiritual dragon royal ring? Nyetian became cold. He did not answer Huadong's question. Instead, he asked, "High Priest, I am very curious. How did you know that I have the spiritual dragon royal ring?" Chapter 2078. Hearing Huadong's words, Nyetian's eyes suddenly narrowed and his expression changed. He said in a deep voice, "High Priest, your joke is not funny at all." Nyetian couldn't believe that Huadong said that the spirit dragon royal ring was his. Although Nyetian didn't know what the spirit dragon royal ring was, he knew that it must have something to do with the dragon spring veins. Now that Huadong suddenly said that the spirit dragon royal ring was his, how could Nyetian believe it? "Nyetian, do I look like I'm joking?" Huadong said cold and gloomy. Nyetian looked at Huadong, and his eyes flickered. He frowned and said, "High Priest, since you said that the spirit dragon royal ring is yours, can you prove it?" "Prove?" Huadong was stunned. He frowned and thought for a while. He suddenly said, "Nyetian, do you know the Guardian family?" "The Guardian clan." Upon hearing this name, Nyetian's eyes narrowed, and his expression changed. He had heard of the Guardian family more than once. He had even come into contact with the Guardian family. Back in the Sumi world, the dragon head of the demonic dragon abyss was a defector from the Guardian family. The Sword Elder once told him that the Guardian family was an organization secretly established by the Dragon Rebel Holy Lord. It was made up of the 6 powerful families at that time. Its purpose was to protect something. Nyetian guessed that the thing the Guardian family was protecting was most likely the dragon spring veins. Nietian had asked Enai Jamming about the Guardian family, but Enai Jamming hadn't fully recovered his memory, so he couldn't answer him. How could Nietian not be surprised that Huadong would suddenly mention the Guardian clans? It seems that you know about the Guardian family. Huadong's gloomy face softened when he saw Nietian's reaction. He said, "If that's the case, our conversation will be much simpler." "What do you mean?" Nietian suddenly looked up at Huadong and said in surprise. Huadong nodded slightly and said word by word, "What I mean is, I am a member of the Guardian family." Nietian's pupils suddenly shrank, and his face stiffened in an instant. He stared at Huadong in shock and couldn't say a word for a long time. He had never imagined that Huadong actually came from the legendary Guardian family. After being stunned for more than 10 seconds, Nietian's expression gradually returned to normal. He asked, "High Priest, what's going on?" Huadong looked at Nietian and let out a long sigh. He suddenly recalled many things, and his expression kept changing. Moments later, Huadong calmed down. He looked at Nietian and asked, "Nietian, what do you know about the Guardian clan and the Dragon Spring Vein?" After thinking for a while, Nietian told him everything he knew. In the end, he asked, "Your Excellency, the Dragon Rebel Holy Lord established the Guardian family to protect the Dragon Spring Vein, right?" Huadong looked at Nietian and finally nodded solemnly. Nietian's eyes flickered. He had guessed correctly. The Guardian clans were here to protect the Dragon Spring Veins. "Your Excellency, I heard that the Guardian clan is in a very mysterious alien world. Why are you here?" Nietian became cold and couldn't help but ask. Huadong sighed and smiled bitterly. Then he told him everything. The Guardian clan was established to protect the Dragon Spring Vein. The Dragon Rebel tribe had obtained the Dragon Spring Vein, a holy relic of the divine Dragon tribe. Later, Enai Jamming asked the Guardian clan to leave with the Dragon Spring Vein. Unfortunately, after the Guardian clan learned that the Dragon Rebel tribe had been destroyed, the 6 clans had different opinions. Some people wanted to take the Dragon Spring Vein for themselves, which led to a civil war among the Guardian clan. Huadong was the master of the Hua family, one of the 6 Guardian clans. During the civil war, he left with the Hua family members and the spiritual Dragon Royal Ring. Later, in order to avoid the pursuit of the other 5 clans, he gave the spiritual Dragon Royal Ring to his clansmen and scattered them to different planes of existence. After that, he escaped the pursuit of the 5 clans and came to the Julie demon territory alone. By a freak combination of factors, he became the high priest of the black-scaled demonic tribe. After saying this, Huadong smiled bitterly and said, "Fate is really strange sometimes. I thought that I would have nothing to do with the Dragon Spring Vein anymore. Who would have thought that I would meet you here? Maybe some things can't be avoided." Hearing Huadong's words, Nietian finally understood everything. He had obtained the spiritual Dragon Royal Ring when he was in the 3,000 Small Worlds. Its original owner was Hui Yuan, the president of the Su-Mi Spirit Capital Alchemist Guild. Before his death, Hui Yuan gave him the spiritual Dragon Royal Ring, but he didn't explain the origin of the ring. Now it seemed that Hui Yuan must be a descendant of Huadong's clansmen. After understanding all this, Nietian's frown deepened. He looked at Huadong and asked, "High Priest, I don't understand. Why did you leave with the spiritual Dragon Royal Ring? What's the relationship between the spiritual Dragon Royal Ring and the Dragon Spring Vein?" Huadong glanced at Nietian and said with a faint smile, "Lord Dragon Rebel is a very smart man. Maybe he already knew that the Guardian clans would have internal strife, so when he gave the Dragon Spring Vein to the Guardian clans, he actually divided it into 6 parts and hid them in different places. The Dragon Rebel, Saint Master, forged 6 rings, 1 Spirit Dragon Emperor ring and 5 Spirit Dragon King rings. Each ring contains a map of the distribution of the Dragon Spring Veins. In other words, you can only find the Dragon Spring Vein if you get the Dragon Ring first. What I've taken away is only one of the 6 Dragon Rings." Hearing this, Nietian frowned and said, "So there are still 5 Dragon Rings in the hands of the other Guardian clans, right?" "Yes." Huadong nodded slightly and said with a wry smile, "It's been hundreds of thousands of years. The 5 clans must have gotten the Dragon Spring Vein long ago. Nyetian suddenly noticed something. He frowned and asked, High Priest, of the 6 dragon rings you just mentioned, only one is the spiritual dragon royal ring, and the other 5 are the spiritual dragon king rings. What's the difference between the royal ring and the king ring? Of course there's a difference. Huadong faintly smiled, a trace of pride appearing on his lips as he said, The 6 dragon spring veins are not the same. One of them is the largest, half the size of a complete dragon spring vein. The other 5 are very small, only half the size of a complete dragon spring vein. The map of the dragon spring in the royal ring corresponds to the largest dragon spring vein. I see. Nyatan nodded slightly and said with a smile, It seems that the spiritual dragon royal ring is the most important of the 6 dragon rings. Chapter 2079. After learning everything about the spiritual dragon royal ring and the dragon spring vein, Nyetian didn't relax much. Instead, his expression became even more serious. According to Huadong, the other 5 families had already betrayed Ni Jianming and taken the 5 dragon spring veins for themselves. If he wanted to get the complete dragon spring vein, he would have to become enemies with the 5 families. At this time, Nyetian became cold. He suddenly looked at Huadong and asked with a strange smile, High Priest, I'm curious. Since you have the spiritual dragon royal ring, why don't you follow the guidance of the ring to find the dragon spring vein and take it for yourself? The dragon spring vein was the holy relic of the divine dragon clan. It was something that gave birth to the entire divine dragon clan, so it was absolutely powerful. As long as Huadong could take half of the dragon spring vein for himself, his strength would definitely improve, and he could even break through to the Saint Realm. A warrior's pursuit of martial arts was very strong. Nyetian didn't believe that Huadong could resist the temptation of the dragon spring vein. Huadong seemed to have known that Nyetian would ask such a question, but he didn't get angry. Instead, he said with a faint smile, I know how powerful the dragon spring vein is. Of course I want to take it for myself, but I'm too weak to do it. The Dragon Rebel Saint Master has already predicted all of this, so he set up a powerful seal to protect every place where the dragon spring vein is kept. Only those who can sense the dragon ring and nurture the dragon vein in their bodies can break the seal and get the dragon spring vein. I also wanted to sense the spiritual dragon royal ring, but the aura of the ring was too strong. I couldn't sense it, and I couldn't nurture the dragon vein in my body. So even if I knew where the dragon spring vein was, I couldn't get it. At this point, Huadong's eyes trembled. He looked at Nyetian and said, Nyetian, you're the one who can sense the spiritual dragon royal ring. Otherwise, it's impossible for your body to nurture such a powerful dragon vein. Me? Nyetian was stunned and couldn't help but frown. He remembered very clearly that he had first nurtured the 9-star dragon vein in the chaotic abyss, and then obtained the spirit dragon emperor ring from Huayuan. This made him a little confused. Was his 9-star dragon vein born from the spirit dragon royal ring? Huadong looked at Nyetian and seemed to know what the latter was thinking. He laughed and said, Nyetian, you must be very confused. Your dragon's vein was clearly born before you obtained the spirit dragon king's ring. So why did I say that it was born because there was a connection between it and the king's ring? Nyetian nodded. This was exactly what he was wondering. Huadong laughed and said, Nyetian, you underestimate the spirit dragon emperor ring. The connection between a cultivator and the monarch ring did not occur only when they were very close. Even if you're thousands of miles away, this feeling will still exist. When you were nurturing the dragon vein, even though you had not obtained the sovereign ring, the two of you could already sense each other. When you encounter the dragon ring later, this feeling will be even more obvious. Nyetian's eyes flickered as he immediately understood Huadong's words. The connection between a cultivator and the dragon ring was a connection that could transcend time and space. The 9-star dragon vein was born in Nyetian's body because of the connection between him and the spirit dragon royal ring. When he met Huayuan later, the latter had given him the spirit dragon royal ring because Nyetian already had the 9-star dragon vein. Nyetian clearly remembered that before Huayuan died, he had said that he was the master the spirit dragon royal ring had been searching for all this time. Nyetian. At this moment, Huadong's expression suddenly changed. I feel that the dragon vein in your body is very strange. It seems to be even stronger than a 9-star dragon vein. What's going on? Tian smiled and did not hide anything. He told Huadong about his encounter with Lin Yi and how he had merged the latter's 5-sun dragon vein. The dragon vein in Tian's body was no longer the 9-star dragon vein. It was the supreme dragon vein formed by the fusion of the 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein. The 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein are the two strongest types of dragon veins. I didn't expect them to merge in your body. Huadong was shocked and could not help but praise. Tian nodded with a smile. Then he thought of something and asked, High Priestess, the 9-star dragon vein was nurtured by the dragon ring. Does that mean the 5-yang dragon vein was also nurtured by the dragon ring? Yes. Huadong nodded and sighed. It's extremely rare to find someone who can sense the dragon ring. Both of you can sense the dragon ring and have given birth to the strongest dragon veins. I didn't expect you to meet each other. Maybe this is fate. The corner of Tian's mouth curled up slightly. He did not comment on Huadong's words. He had never believed in fate. He only believed in himself. At this moment, Tian suddenly thought of something and asked, Lord High Priest, the 9-star dragon vein was born from the spirit dragon royal ring. What about the 5-sun dragon vein? Is it also born from the spirit dragon royal ring? Yes, it should be. Huadong nodded and said, the 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein are the emperor dragon veins among the dragon veins. They are the strongest dragon veins. However, due to the difference in physique, the dragon veins born from them are also different. It's indeed surprising that you can fuse the two dragon veins together. Tian smiled and did not say anything else. It seemed that he was not the only one who could sense the spirit dragon royal ring. Perhaps there were others in this world who also had the 9-star dragon vein or the 5-sun dragon vein. Lord High Priest, you are a member of the Protector clan. Moreover, you are the one who brought the spirit dragon royal ring out. I will return it to you now. After thinking for a moment, Tian took out the spirit dragon royal ring and handed it over to Huadong. Huadong faintly smiled and waved his hand. Tian, I didn't come to you to take back the spirit dragon royal ring. There's a connection between you and the royal ring, so its owner should be you. Tian was stunned for a moment, but seeing Huadong's sincerity, he no longer insisted. He put away the spirit dragon royal ring and asked, Lord High Priest, if you didn't come to me for the spirit dragon royal ring, then what is it for? Huadong smiled and said, I came to find you to help you find the dragon spring vein. You know where the dragon spring vein is. Tian's eyes burned with desire, and he almost exclaimed, Of course. The corner of Huadong's mouth rose. I've seen the map inside the spirit dragon royal ring, so I know that the dragon vein is in the myriad devil abyss. This is also the reason why I came to the 9-Li demon realm. Tian's eyes trembled, and he immediately understood. The reason why Huadong came to the 9-Li demon realm was because he already knew that the dragon vein was in the myriad devil abyss. However, Tian was baffled. He had the spirit dragon royal ring for a long time, but he never knew that there was a map inside. Huadong could see through Tian's doubts. He smiled and said, Take out the spirit dragon royal ring. Tian took out the spirit dragon royal ring and handed it over to Huadong. His eyes blazed as he looked at the latter. Huadong received the spirit dragon royal ring and extended his hand. A ball of light surged out from his palm and directly entered the ring. Chapter 2080. This is the map of the spirit dragon emperor ring. Tian stared blankly at the map in front of him for a moment before asking. At this moment, his eyes were blazing with passion. The dragon spring vein, the legendary dragon spring vein, was right in front of him. Yes. Huadong nodded slightly and said, This is the hidden dragon map of the spirit dragon emperor ring. Tian became cold for a moment. He carefully looked at the hidden dragon map, but he couldn't clearly distinguish the location of the dragon spring vein. Tian, what you're looking at now is the map of the entire myriad devil abyss. Look carefully at the red and green dots on the map. The red, that represents our current location, while the green that represents the location of the dragon spring vein. Dong patiently explained to Nye Tian. At the same time, he opened his palm in front of Nye Tian. Nye Tian saw a dragon-shaped seal appear on Huadong's palm. It looked like a lifelike little dragon swimming in his palm. He couldn't help but ask, "High Priest, what is this?" Huadong raised his palm, and the dragon-shaped seal leaped up and landed on Nye Tian's palm. Nye Tian, this is the seal to open the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring. With this seal, you can open the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring at any time. Huadong explained with a faint smile. Oh, so that's how it is. Nye Tian nodded with a smile. He sensed the seal on his palm, and with a thought, the seal disappeared from his palm. Although he wasn't a sealing grandmaster, he could still easily grasp this kind of simple seal. At this time, Nye Tian finally understood why he didn't know that there was a hidden dragon map in the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring, even though he had it for so long. It turned out that in order to open the Spirit Dragon Emperor ring, he needed the seal. Next, Nye Tian carefully studied the hidden dragon map. He used the holographic divine runes to engrave the map of the entire myriad devil abyss into a holographic projection and stored it in his divine sense. Huadong would never believe that Nye Tian could memorize such a complicated map after looking at it once. Nye Tian pointed at the hidden dragon map and asked with a frown, "High Priestess, we are currently about 30 kilometers away from the Dragon Spring Vein. Furthermore, based on the location on the map, the Dragon Spring Vein seems to be at the very center of the myriad demon abyss. Is that right?" "That's right." Huadong nodded and said, "The entire myriad degrees demon abyss is a huge pit, like a bowl. The Dragon Spring Vein is buried in the deepest part." Nye Tian's face sank slightly as he asked, "How much further do we have to go before we can reach the Dragon Spring Vein?" What Nye Tian saw just now was the horizontal distance between their current position and the Dragon Spring Vein. However, the Dragon Spring Vein was actually deeper than their current position. According to the event, the Dragon Spring Vein was located in the deepest part of the myriad degrees demon abyss. Nye Tian could already feel the pressure from the abyss. If they continued to go deeper, he wasn't sure if he could withstand it. "Nye Tian, take a look." Huadong flipped his palm, and the hidden dragon map moved with him, making it more three-dimensional. Huadong pointed at the map and said, "The myriad degrees demon abyss is divided into 4 layers from top to bottom. The upper layer, middle layer, lower layer, and deeper layer. We are currently in the lower layer." Nye Tian carefully looked at the map and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It turned out that he hadn't entered the deeper layer of the myriad degrees demon abyss yet. Huadong could tell what Nye Tian was worried about. He said, "The myriad degrees demon abyss gathers powerful 10,000 degrees demon chi. This kind of demon chi will produce a powerful demonic pressure on martial artists. Furthermore, the stronger a martial artist is, the stronger the demonic pressure they will feel. Ordinary martial artists can only move around in the upper layer. Those with slightly better talent can enter the middle layer, and those with superior talent can enter the lower layer. Only those with exceptional talent can enter the deeper layer. With your martial talent, it won't be difficult for you to enter the deeper layer, but I'm not sure if you can approach the demon abyss core." Nye Tian's eyes trembled when he heard Huadong's words. He asked, "The demon abyss core? What kind of place is that?" "The demon abyss core is the deepest and most central area of the myriad degrees demon abyss. The Dragon Spring Vein is located in the demon abyss core. Furthermore, there's another thing in the demon abyss core. If you can't obtain its approval, you won't even be able to approach the demon abyss core." Huadong furrowed his brows, unable to conceal the worry on his face. "What thing?" Nye Tian was stunned for a moment. Then, he thought of something and his eyes trembled again. He blurted out, "The 9-ly steel. It seems like you already know about the 9-ly steel." Huadong bitterly laughed and said, "The 9-ly stone tablet is something that the 9 ancient clans view as the stone of fate. It is rumored that anyone who can activate the 9-ly stone tablet can affect the fate of the 9 ancient clans. I believe you've already heard about the last person to activate the 9-ly steel. He was the Netherworld Emperor of the ancient Ming clan. I've seen him before. He was the most terrifying existence I've ever seen in my life." Later on, He did indeed change the fate of the 9 ancient races and nearly caused their destruction. Back then, when the 9 ancient races retreated to the 9ly demon domain, I saved many people from the black-scale monstrous race. That's how I became their high priest. Huadong's eyes trembled slightly after he finished speaking. He seemed to be very afraid. Nie Tian's expression changed slightly when he saw Huadong's expression. According to Huadong, the Netherworld Emperor was the most terrifying existence he had ever seen in his life. From this, it could be seen how powerful he was. Even Huadong would involuntarily reveal an expression of fear when he mentioned the Netherworld Emperor. One must know that Huadong was not weak. He was practically on par with the 9-god calamity in Nye Dao. If even someone like him was so afraid of the Netherworld Emperor, one could imagine how terrifying the latter was. High Priestess, are you saying that if I can't activate the Julie Steel, I won't even be able to get close to the Demon Abyss core, and thus won't be able to obtain the Dragon Spring Vein? Nye Tian's face was grim. The situation was much more complicated than he had imagined. Yes, Huadong nodded. Then he looked at Nye Tian with a smile and said, Nye Tian, I believe in you. You will definitely be able to activate the 9ly Steel. Nye Tian was slightly taken aback. He did not understand why Huadong would trust him so much. The 9ly Steel was the stone of destiny of the 9 ancient races. No one knew how long it had existed. Only the Netherworld Emperor had ever activated it. From this, one could see how profound and mysterious the 9ly Steel was. Truth be told, Nye Tian had no interest in the 9ly Steel, but for the sake of obtaining the Dragon Spring Vein, he could only give it a try. Next, Nye Tian and Huadong did not waste any time. They stood up and left the Dark Valley. Nye Tian. Outside the Dark Valley, Mushi couldn't help calling out in joy when she saw Nye Tian finally come out. She had been worried that something had happened to Nye Tian after he had been in the Dark Valley for so long. High Priest. The Black Kuan and Black Shark brothers bowed respectfully when they saw Huadong. Chapter 2081. In the Demon Abyss, Nye Tian, Huadong, and the rest advanced with difficulty. Although they weren't far from the Demon Abyss core, the pressure in the surrounding space made their speed very slow. About half an hour later, they finally entered the depths of the Demon Abyss. After entering the depths, Nye Tian immediately felt the pressure in the space suddenly increase. It made him feel like his breathing had stopped. Nye Tian, are you all right? Mushi asked with concern when she saw him. Nye Tian shook his head to indicate that he was fine. Then, he looked at Mushi and the rest with a puzzled gaze. Mushi, the Black Kuan, and the Black Shark brothers didn't look relaxed, but they looked much better than Nye Tian and Huadong. It seemed that they could withstand the demonic pressure very well. Nye Tian is a member of the 9 ancient clans. Because he has lived in the Julie demonic region for many years, he has a certain degree of adaptability to demonic aura. His resistance to demonic pressure is also much stronger than humans. Huadong transmitted his voice to Nye Tian. Nye Tian nodded slightly and no longer had any doubts. He began to think about the Demon Abyss core. At this time, the surrounding space was pitch black. Even a martial artist with a strong perception could barely see everything within a few dozen meters around them. Walking in this environment was like walking in the endless night. It made people feel a suffocating pressure. They continued forward. When they were about 1,000 meters away from the Demon Abyss core, Huadong stopped. Nye Tian, this is my limit. I can't go any further. Huadong stopped and said to Nye Tian. Nye Tian nodded and said, High Priest, it's enough for you to accompany me to this point. Leave the rest to me. Huadong's martial talent was top-notch among human warriors. However, he still couldn't approach the Demon Abyss core. High Priest, we are leaving. Black Kuan bowed slightly and bid farewell to Huadong. Black Kuan, if anything happens next, you must protect Nye Tian's safety. Huadong looked at Black Kuan and transmitted his voice to warn him. Hey Kuan nodded in agreement, and then he didn't stay here any longer. He turned around and headed towards the depths. After sinking for another 500 meters, Mushi and He Sha's breathing became hurried. They could no longer withstand the demonic pressure. Even though the wood elves and the black-scaled demonic beasts had racial advantages, they were still unable to resist the incomparably powerful demonic pressure. On the contrary, Nietion's expression didn't change much. Although his chest was stifling and uncomfortable, he could still bear it. Mushi and Heisha were both very surprised. How could Nietion's martial body be so strong? Nietion, be careful. Mushi looked at Nietion, unable to conceal the worry in her eyes. I will. Nietion smiled faintly and continued to sneak deeper. At this time, only Heikuin was accompanying Nietion, and the latter's aura was obviously in an unstable state. Finally, about 100 meters away from the demon abyss, Heikuin finally couldn't bear it anymore and said with difficulty, Mr. Nieton, my martial body has reached its limit. I can't accompany you any longer. Heikuin, you've worked hard. Nieton nodded slightly and was ready to let Heikuin go back. However, at this moment, he suddenly saw a black shadow flash behind Heikuin, and his expression couldn't help but change. Mr. Nietion, what's wrong? Heikuin was only about a meter away from Nietion. He couldn't help but ask when he saw the latter's expression change. Be careful. Nietion's expression suddenly changed, and then he screamed. The aura of his body instantly soared to the extreme, and he directly slapped towards the direction behind Heikuin. Bang! Immediately after, a muffled sound was heard, as if something was hit and flew out. Who's there? Only then did Heikuin react. He suddenly roared, and the aura around him exploded, causing the surrounding water to shake. Heikuin, how dare you bring outsiders to the Julie stone tablet? Then a deep voice was heard, and then two black-clothed figures appeared. I was wondering who it was. So it's you two. Nietion didn't see their faces clearly, but he could sense their auras. They were Shuehen and Inyoli. Those two were very talented, and they were actually able to reach here. It seemed that they were also here for the Julie stone tablet. Every member of the 9 ancient clans wanted to activate the Julie stone tablet, so it wasn't strange for Shuehen and Inyoli to appear here. Mr. Nietion, you go first. Leave the two of them to me. Heikuin's expression darkened. He took a step forward and wanted to stop Shuehen and Inyoli. Nietion frowned, but he didn't leave. If he left Heikuin here alone, it was very likely that he would die at the hands of Shuehen and Inyoli. Even though Heikuin was a member of the black-scaled monstrous clan, he had no chance of winning against Shuehen and Inyoli at the same time. Shuehen, I'll hold off Heikuin. I'll leave the human brat to you. Inyoli smiled coldly. Then his body moved, and an endless aura of darkness surged from his body, directly wrapping around Heikuin. He was afraid of Nietion, so he let Shuehen deal with Nietion. He only needed to hold off Heikuin. Mr. Nietion, Heikuin shouted when he sensed that something was wrong. However, he couldn't see Nietion at all. There was only boundless darkness around him. Human brat, die. At the same time, Shuehen attacked. A blood-red sword intent turned into a ray of blood-red light that fell directly on Nietion's head. In the depths of the myriad degrees devil abyss, all aspects of a martial artist's strength would be suppressed. Therefore, they wouldn't be very powerful. Although Shuehen's sword light was only a few meters long, its aura was incredibly sharp and sinister. Nietion didn't say anything. He simply slashed out with the starry heaven slash, and the sword intent around him condensed into a several-meter-long sword that slammed into the blood-red light. A muffled boom rang out, and the sword intent scattered in all directions, transforming into tiny blades that shot out in all directions. Nietion was forced back a few steps, and when he stabilized himself, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Even though he was a late paramount god after using his 3 forbidden magics, he was still a lot weaker than Shuehen, who was a peak paramount god. Thankfully, they were in the depths of the myriad degrees devil abyss. Otherwise, Nietion would have been seriously injured. Nietion had fought Heikuin before, but they hadn't faced each other head-on. Now that he was fighting Shuehen, he realized that there was still a huge gap between him and a peak paramount god. You surprised me, brat, Heikuin said. Shuehen wasn't pleased that he had injured Nietion, but rather shocked. Never could he have guessed that Nye Tian would be strong enough to fight him head-on. Chapter 2082. Nye Tian could feel Shui Hen's aura skyrocketing, and his face darkened. It seemed that Shui Hen was merely testing his strength with that strike. What followed next would be his true strength. Brat, you humans have always been an inferior race. You're just an inferior piece of trash. You think you're worthy of approaching the Julie Steel? Dream on. Shui Hen sneered coldly. His entire body was surging with a bloody killing intent and sword intent. His entire person was like a god of death. The Julie Steel was the saint stone of the 9 ancient clans. If Nye Tian dared to approach it, he would die. Boom! Immediately, Shui Hen slashed down with his sword, and a 10-meter-long blood-red sword shadow appeared. Like a crimson lightning, it slashed towards Nye Tian. Danger! In an instant, Nye Tian felt the danger. He screamed in his heart, and the astral soul wings appeared on his back. His silhouette slanted, and at the same time he stabbed out with his sword. An almost extreme angle, Nye Tian avoided Shui Hen's fatal strike. Fortunately, he reacted in time. If he was a little slower, the sword would have slashed his chest. At that time, even if he didn't die, he would be left with half a life. Shui Hen's strength had exceeded Nye Tian's expectations. Just 2 sword strikes had posed a great threat to him. Nye Tian frowned, and his eyes calmed down. He looked at the Black Kuan, who was trapped by a dark and sharp boundary. First, I'll help the Black Kuan break the boundary and let him leave. Nye Tian made up his mind. The wings on his back flapped, and he slashed out in the direction of the Black Kuan. The fiend god sword intent turned into a black sword shadow, whistling out like a black snake. You can't even protect yourself, and you still want to save others? Shui Hen smiled coldly. The blood-red sword in his hand slashed down, and 3 blood-red sword shadows appeared in the air, blasting towards Nye Tian. Nye Tian had long known that Shui Hen would make a move. He activated the Astral Soul Shield and the Violet Thunder Battle Armor at the same time, intending to resist the latter's attack. Boom! Crack, crack, crack. At this time, the Divine Demon's sword shadow bombarded the Silent Night enchantment. After a loud sound, the enchantment instantly began to collapse. The power of fiend gods originally had a very strong restraining effect on enchantments and seals. Therefore, Nye Tian's fiend god sword intent could easily break open the Silent Night enchantment. Bang! 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 Almost at the same time, 3 blood-red sword shadows descended, directly shattering Nye Tian's defenses and leaving 3 deep wounds on his chest. Immediately, blood gushed out of Nye Tian's body, turning him into a man of blood. Mr. Nye Tian. When the Black Kuan came out of the barrier and saw that Nye Tian was injured, it was so scared that its face turned pale and it screamed. Black Kuan, leave now. Nye Tian seemed to be seriously injured, but his aura wasn't life-threatening. He directly shouted, "If you stay here, you won't be able to help me at all. You will only be a burden to me." The Black Kuan was stunned for a moment and immediately understood. Nye Tian was about to enter the heart of the demon abyss, but he was worried about him, so he didn't leave immediately. After understanding this, the Black Kuan didn't want to stay any longer. Its body moved, and it transformed into its beast form, rushing towards the higher levels of the water realm. And Yoli and Shui Hen didn't stop it. At the same time, they coldly looked at Nye Tian. "Human brat, you have some loyalty. You don't want to see the Black Kuan die here with you." Shui Hen smiled coldly and said, "But do you know? When the Black Kuan brought you here, it was destined that the Black Scale Tribe would become the enemy of the other ancient tribes. The Black Scale Tribe protecting a human and bringing a human near the Julie Stone Tablet is taboo in itself. No matter what, the Black Scale Tribe will pay for what they have done. Is that so?" Nye Tianling smiled coldly and said, "Although I am a human, I represent the ancient Ming tribe. Since the ancient Ming tribe is one of the 9 ancient clans, may I ask why I can't approach the Julie Stone Tablet?" "The ancient Ming tribe?" Shui Hen sneered again when he heard Nye Tian mention the ancient Ming tribe. He said, Although the ancient Ming tribe is one of the 9 ancient clans in name, they were actually expelled from the Jiuli demon domain long ago. If it wasn't for the Wood Elf tribe's insistence, the ancient Ming tribe wouldn't even have the qualifications to participate in the competition of the 9 ancient clans. This time, the ancient Ming tribe actually allowed a human to participate in the competition of the 9 ancient clans. This is simply a provocation to the 9 ancient clans. After this competition of the 9 ancient clans ends, the ancient Ming tribe will be completely removed from the 9 ancient clans. In the future, the ancient Ming tribe will not be able to take half a step into the Jiuli demon domain. As for you ancient Ming tribe participants, you will definitely die here. Towards the end, Shui Hen's eyes turned incomparably red, as if blood could flow out at any moment. An ant from the blood-fiend monstrous race dares to say such words? However, just as Shui Hen finished speaking, a deep voice rang out. Who do you think you are to say that you want to remove the ancient Ming tribe from the 9 ancient clans? Let alone you, not even your patriarch is allowed to say those words just now. As soon as he finished speaking, a fiery red figure slowly appeared in the dark waters, and its face gradually became clearer. Lian Jiufeng, it really is you. Nye Tian couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips when he saw the person's face. He knew that Lian Jiufeng would definitely appear. He just didn't expect him to appear at such a timely time. Shui Hen was stunned. Then, he turned to look at Lian Jiufeng. Chilling, killing intent immediately appeared in his eyes. He said grimly, "Trash of the ancient Ming tribe, you've come at the right time. I, Shui Hen, will kill all of you today to save time. Song Lan, I'll leave this idiot to you." Lian Jiufeng's reaction was extremely disdainful. In fact, he didn't even have the desire to look at the bloodstains. Instead, he looked at the other side of the water and said indifferently, "Since the water fairy race is already here, why bother hiding?" Lian Jiufeng's words stunned Nye Tian. He couldn't help but look at the dark region of water. A white bubble suddenly surged out from the dark region of water. It expanded instantly, and a white-robed figure appeared before everyone. I didn't think that so many people would come to the battle between the 9 ancient clans. What a surprise. The white-robed figure walked over step by step. A layer of crystalline light floated around his body. It was extremely profound. A member of the Water Fairy clan? Who are you? Shui Hen and Yuli clearly didn't expect a water fairy to be hiding here. They cried out at the same time. "My name is Mizuhara Kori." The white-robed man smiled faintly. There was a hint of undisguised pride on his exquisite face. Mizuhara Kori. Shui Hen and Yuli cried out at the same time when they heard the name. Terror actually appeared on their faces. Mizuhara Kori? Lian Jiufeng's reaction was very normal. He was stunned at first, but then he remembered. He smiled faintly and said, "So you're the disciple of Lord Sacred Duelist, the next sacred duelist of the 9 ancient clans. No wonder you're so strong." Nye Tian's eyes focused when he heard Lian Jiufeng's words. He couldn't help but look at Mizuhara Kori. Chapter 2083. His aura is so strange. Nye Tian was shocked as he sensed Mizuhara Kori's aura. Mizuhara Kori's aura was different from that of ordinary warriors. Not only was it majestic, but it was also very complicated, as though it contained many different attributes. This guy is a warrior of the 5 elements. While Nye Tian was still in shock, Little Fat Cat's voice rang out, almost as if it was screaming. 5 elements. Nye Tian was stunned. He secretly used the holographic divine sigil to carefully discern Mizuhara Kori's aura. Indeed, he found that the latter's aura contained the power of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The 5 elements are too scary, Nye Tian exclaimed in his heart. The way he looked at Mizuhara Kori changed slightly. Ordinary warriors were of a single element. It was rare to see a warrior with 2 elements at the same time. Warriors like Mizuhara Kori, who possessed the 5 elements, were 1 in a billion. It was no wonder that Bloodscar and Inyoli were so shocked when they heard Mizuhara Kori's name. However, Nye Tian immediately frowned. He was puzzled. As a water fairy, how could Mizuhara Kaori possess the power of 5 elements at the same time? The 5 great fairy clans, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Shouldn't each fairy have the power of 1 element? Just like Mu Shi and Yin Wuzuan, whom Ye Tian had met previously. One was of the wood element, the other was of the fire element. As a water fairy, Mizuhara Kaori actually possessed the 5 elements. This was too strange. The 5 great fairy clans originated from the same source. However, due to some special reasons, they evolved into the 5 great fairy clans. However, each fairy retains the 5 elements bloodline. It's just that this bloodline is too weak and can only display the power of 1 element. Fat Cat knew what Nye Tian was thinking and explained, the 5 elements bloodline in Mizuhara Kaori's body is very special. It can contain the power of the 5 elements at the same time. I see. Nye Tian nodded slightly and could not help but take a few more glances at Mizuhara Kaori. Shui Hen, and you Li, since you know I'm here, why aren't you scramming? At this time, Mizuhara Kaori walked over, her cold gaze sweeping over Bloodscar and Inyuli. She actually told the 2 of them to scram. Bloodscar and Dark Darkness were stunned for a moment. Then their faces darkened. Bloodscar smiled cold and said, Mizuhara Kaori, why are you so arrogant? Aren't you just relying on the fact that you're the disciple of Lord Saint Duelist? Back then, you were known to be the number 1 demon-level genius of the ancient era's 9 clans. However, it would appear that your talent is only SOSO. You've been with the exalted Sage Duel for so long, but you're only a late paramount god. I think your title as the number 1 monster of the 9 clans is just an empty title. And Yuli also laughed contemptuously and said, Mizuhara Kaori, it was really not a wise decision for Lord Sacred Executioner to choose you as a successor. Mizuhara Kaori was a very famous name among the ancient era's 9 clans, not only because of his title as the number 1 monster, but also because he was the apprentice of the exalted Sage Duel. The next Sage Duel. Years ago, the Sage Duel had chosen a successor from the ancient era's 9 clans, and in the end, he had chosen Mizuhara Kaori, who had the 5 phases. Back then, both Bloodscar and Thinyuli had competed to be the next Sage Duel, but both had lost to Mizuhara Kaori. Mizuhara Kaori had always been at the Sage Duel side, so few people had ever seen his true appearance. Even Bloodscar and Thinyuli hadn't recognized him at first glance. Of course, the 2 of them were mocking Mizuhara Kaori for no other reason than the fact that she was only a late paramount god, which meant that she couldn't even match up to the 2 of them. Bloodscar and Yuli, Mizuhara Kaori said, smiling. Taking a step forward, he moved with incredible speed and arrived next to Bloodscar in the blink of an eye. What do you think you're doing, Mizuhara Kaori? Bloodscar blurted out in shock. Looking at Mizuhara Kaori in front of him, he couldn't help but exclaim, Bloodscar, do you think you'd still be alive if I had attacked you just now? Mizuhara Kaori said with a cold smile, his eyes trembling. I don't know, Bloodscar replied, his voice trembling with fear. Although he didn't want to admit it, Mizuhara Kaori really did have a chance to kill him in an instant. Nye Tian was stunned. He hadn't expected Mizuhara Kaori to be so strong. It was as if he wasn't affected by the devil energy at all. Nye Tian, he's a warrior of the 5 phases, Fat Cat explained. The devil energy here doesn't have much of an effect on him. You need to be careful of him. I can tell he's up to no good, Fat Cat explained, at the same time reminding Nye Tian. Nye Tian nodded solemnly and stared at Mizuhara Kaori. He didn't dare to be careless. At this time, Mizuhara Kaori's eyes flashed. She seemed to think of something and turned to look at Nye Tian. She said solemnly, Brat, you are the first human to come to this area of the myriad degrees demon abyss. But this is as far as you can go, because you're about to die by my hands. Nye Tian's eyes focused, but he still looked at Mizuhara Kaori. He didn't say anything. The heart of the devil abyss didn't allow humans to approach it. Mizuhara Kaori had a reason to kill him. Nye Tian, leave first. Leave them to me. It was at this moment Lian Jiofeng's voice rang in Nye Tian's ears. Nye Tian glanced at Lian Jiofeng. He wasn't sure if Lien Jiofeng could stop Mizuhara Kaori. If Bloodscar and Inyoli were the only two people here, Nietian believed that Lien Jiofeng and Songlan were strong enough to stop them. But Mizuhara Kaori's sudden appearance was very bad. Although Mizuhara Kaori was slightly weaker than Bloodscar and Inyoli, she was definitely stronger than them. Ancient Ming, do you want this human to activate the 9 stone steel? Mizuhara Kaori was very smart. She shot Lien Jiofeng a cold glance and said mockingly, "The 9 stone steel is at the heart of the Devil Abyss. This human doesn't even have the ability to enter the heart of the Devil Abyss." "Is that so?" Lien Jiofeng laughed and said, "Mizuhara Kaori, you think that others can't activate the 9 stone steel because you can't, right?" Mizuhara Kaori stilled. Then her expression changed and she shouted, "Nonsense! Who said that I can't activate the 9 stone steel?" "Humph." Lien Jiofeng smiled faintly and said, "You just came out of the heart of the Devil Abyss. Do you think I don't know?" "You." Mizuhara Kaori's eyes widened. She clearly didn't think that Lien Jiofeng would know that she came out of the heart of the Devil Abyss. Chapter 2084. No one had expected that Mizuhara Kaori had already gone to the heart of the abyss. Mizuhara Kaori, so you've already gone to the heart of the abyss. But the myriad degrees demon abyss is so quiet. It seems that you failed to activate the Jiuli steel. Shuehen reacted and chuckled. He seemed to be taking pleasure in Mizuhara Kaori's misfortune. "Mizuhara Kaori, you are the #1 genius of the 9 races, but your talent is only SOSO. And Yuli also sneered disdainfully. Even though they were weaker than Mizuhara Kaori, they hadn't gone to the heart of the abyss yet. This meant that they still had a chance to activate the Jiuli steel. "Shut up, you 2 pieces of trash." Mizuhara Kaori roared angrily. Her exquisite face twisted slightly as a terrifying aura erupted from her body. She forced Shuehen and Inyoli to retreat and almost lose their footing. Just her aura alone was enough to make Shuehen and Inyoli unable to endure it. It was easy to imagine just how strong Mizuhara Kaori was. In the depths of the myriad degrees demon abyss, Mizuhara Kaori could use the power of the 5 elements in her body to resist the devilish pressure. This was something Shuehen and Inyoli could not do. It was at this moment Mizuhara Kaori looked at Lien Jiofeng and smiled coldly. She said darkly, "So I wasn't the only one in the heart of the demon abyss just now, the ancient Ming. The other aura was you, wasn't it? At least you aren't too stupid." Lien Jiofeng smiled faintly. His expression was calm, as usual, as if he didn't care about Mizuhara Kaori at all. "Ancient Ming, it seems that you didn't activate the Jiuli steel either, right?" Mizuhara Kaori smiled cold. Her eyes were also filled with disdain. "So what if I did?" Lien Jiofeng replied solemnly, but he could not hide the disappointment on his face. Lien Jiofeng and Mizuhara Kaori had walked out of the heart of the abyss together. Both of them had entered the heart of the abyss, but neither had been able to activate the Jiuli steel. Nietian also understood now. No wonder Lien Jiofeng hadn't come looking for him, even though he had been in the myriad degrees demon abyss for so long. He had secretly gone to the heart of the abyss. Lien Jiofeng was a member of the ancient Ming race. There was nothing strange about him wanting to activate the Jiuli steel. However, the result was not very good. Lien Jiofeng had failed to activate the 9 stone steel. Even Lien Jiofeng failed to activate the Jiuli steel. This steel is a little strange, Nietian thought to himself. Since neither of us has activated the Jiuli steel, what right do you have to mock me? Mizuhara Kaori said coldly, the killing intent on her face becoming more obvious. "Umph," Lien Jiofeng sneered. Then he pointed at Nietian and said, "I may not have activated the Jiuli steel, but I believe that he can." "Him?" Mizuhara Kaori raised an eyebrow and looked at Nietian with extreme disdain. Then she laughed unabashedly and said, "He's just an inferior human. If he can activate the Jiuli steel, then I, Mizuhara Kaori, will not be surnamed Shui." Shuehen and Inyuli also burst into laughter. They looked at Niet Tan disdainfully, clearly not believing that he could activate the Julie steel. In reality, Mizuharakori and the others thought that it was already very difficult for a human martial practitioner like Niet Tan to come this far. It was impossible for him to enter the heart of the abyss. If he couldn't even enter the heart of the abyss, how could he activate the Julie steel? The corner of Niet Tan's mouth twitched. He had a helpless expression. He didn't know why Lian Jiufeng was so confident in him. To be honest, even he wasn't sure if he could activate the Julie steel. Mizuhara Kaori, I don't care if your surname is Shui or not. However, I am very sure that Niet Tan can activate the Julie steel. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and said confidently, You're sure? What makes you so sure? Mizuhara Kaori's eyes froze. She pointed at Niet Tan and roared. Compared to the ancient 9 races, humans are an inferior race, an ant. An ant wants to activate the Julie steel? What a joke. Niet Tan's expression darkened when he heard Mizuhara Kaori's words. The ancient 9 races had a deep prejudice against humans. They had always thought of humans as inferior races. This was what Niet Tan hated the most. He had never looked down on the ancient 9 races, so he naturally wouldn't let them look down on him. Mizuhara Kaori, since you don't believe me, why don't we make a bet? Niet Tan couldn't hold it in any longer. He took a step forward and said, I'll go to the heart of the abyss right now. If I can't activate the Julie steel, you can do whatever you want of me. If I can activate the Julie steel, what are you going to do? Ha ha ha. Mizuhara Kaori laughed wildly as soon as Niet Tan finished speaking. It was as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. Niet Tianling looked coldly at Mizuhara Kaori. His expression was as dark as water. Mizuhara Kaori was laughing happily right now. It would be time for him to cry later. Brat, you Niet Tan, right? After laughing for a dozen seconds, Mizuhara Kaori finally stopped. He looked at Niet Tan mockingly and said, Since you want to make a bet, I, Mizuhara Kaori, will accompany you. However, your life is too cheap. It can't be compared to mine. What do you mean? Niet Tan frowned. He couldn't stand Mizuhara Kaori's arrogance any longer. Mizuhara Kaori's eyes turned cold. He then looked at Lian Jiufeng and Song Lan and said, How about this? I'll bet the lives of these 2 and the lives of the 3 of you. If you can activate the Julie steel, my life will be yours. If you can't, then the lives of the 3 of you will be mine. Niet Tan's expression darkened after hearing Mizuhara Kaori's words. Mizuhara Kaori was too arrogant. He wanted to use his own life to bet against the lives of Niet Tan and the others. He clearly thought too highly of himself. Niet Tan had originally thought that Mizuhara Kaori was an extremely rare martial practitioner of the 5 elements. That was why he looked at him differently. But now it seemed that this guy was an idiot and an arrogant idiot at that. Mizuhara Kaori, don't think too highly of yourself. Your life isn't as important as you think it is. Niet Tan's expression was dark and cold. If you want to make a bet, then add the lives of Bloodscar and Inyoli. Use the lives of the 3 of you to bet against the lives of the 3 of us. Do you dare? Puffed. Mizuhara Kaori snorted and swept his cold gaze across Bloodscar and Inyoli. He said arrogantly, Sure. The lives of these 2 pieces of trash will serve as a foil. Bloodscar and Inyoli had ugly expressions on their faces, but they didn't dare to show their anger. They could only stand there with dark expressions. All right, then let us go to the heart of the demon abyss now. Niet Tan nodded with a sinister smile on his face. The reason he dared to make a bet with Mizuhara Kaori was because he had full confidence in himself. If the Emperor of the Netherworld could do it, then he, Niet Tan, could do it too. Chapter 2085. Brat, I, Shui Yuanxiang, would like to see how an inferior human like you can activate the 9 stone steel. Shui Yuanxiang sneered. Then, she turned around and charged towards the heart of the devil abyss. Human brat, you will definitely lose this bet. The devilish pressure inside the heart of the devil abyss is terrifying. It is impossible for you humans to enter, Bloodscar mocked. Then, he and you followed closely behind Shui Yuanxiang. Niet Tan laughed and thought to himself, I'll let you laugh now, but you'll be crying later. Nietion, let's go. Lion Jiofeng glanced at Nietion. The smile on his face disappeared and was replaced with nervousness. In reality, he wasn't sure if Nietion could activate the 9 Li Stone Steel. But he had already said it. It was impossible to take it back. Lion Jiofeng, tell me, why must you activate the 9 Li Stone Steel? Nietion sent a sound transmission to Lian Jiofeng as he walked forward. Lian Jiofeng had gone to the heart of the Devil Abyss himself and failed to activate the 9 Li Stone Steel. Now, he wanted Nietion to activate the 9 Li Stone Steel. He was clearly determined to activate the 9 Li Stone Steel. He must have a reason for doing this. Because the thing we're looking for is under the 9 Li Stone Steel, Lian Jiofeng replied solemnly. A strange light flashed through his eyes. Nietion was stunned. Then he reacted. His eyes heated up, and he exclaimed, "You are saying that there is something under the 9 Li Stone Steel that can help Cher recover her memories?" "Yes." Lian Jiofeng nodded and said, "There is a 3 lives blood jade under the 9 Li Stone Steel. That is what we are looking for. Nietion, you must activate the 9 Li Stone Steel. Otherwise, none of us will be able to leave the myriad degrees demon abyss." Nietion frowned, and his expression grew even grimmer. It looked like he had to activate the 9 Li Stone Steel this time. The 9 Li Stone Steel was related to too many things. Not just the 3 lives blood jade, but also the dragon's spring vein. Furthermore, the lives of Nietion's group of 3 were at stake. No matter what, Nietion had to activate the Julie Steel. As he got closer and closer to the heart of the demon abyss, Nietion felt the pressure from the demonic chi around him grow stronger. Every step he took was extremely difficult, as if his feet were filled with tens of thousands of tons of lead sand. "Brat, if you really can't do it, just give up," Bloodscar mocked when he saw Nietion struggling. Nietion ignored him and walked forward step by step. Even though it was difficult, it was very steady and he would never stop. Mizuhara Kaori and Lian Jiofeng were the most relaxed. Songlan didn't feel any pressure at all. Shuehin and Inyoli were panting a little, but they could still hold on. It took Nietion and the others about half an hour to cover the short distance of a few hundred meters. This is the heart of the demon abyss. Lian Jiofeng stopped and looked at the even darker water in front of him. Nietion stopped and took a deep breath. His face, which had been flushed with blood, seemed to have recovered a bit. When he looked at the water in front of him, he discovered that the water was even darker. It was obvious that the demonic energy here was even denser. "Human brat, you can't hold on even before entering the heart of the demon abyss. Let's see how you're going to activate the Julie Steel later." Mizuhara Kaori glared at Nietion. Although she was mocking him, she was extremely shocked inside. She never imagined that Nietion would actually be able to reach the edge of the demon abyss. Mizuhara Kaori knew just how powerful the demonic pressure of the heart of the demon abyss was. Among the ancient era's 9 clans, only the few of them were able to reach this place. Nietion's talent and willpower had surpassed Mizuhara Kaori's expectations. Nietion didn't just rely on his talent and martial physique to make it this far. He relied more on his powerful martial will. It was only with this martial will that he would be able to continue on his path. "Water," Mizuhara Kaori, "enter the heart of the demon abyss. The 2 of us can wait outside," Shuehin said to Mizuhara Kaori with an awkward smile. He and Inyoli were already at their limits to make it this far. If they entered the heart of the demon abyss, their martial physique wouldn't be able to endure the demonic pressure. They would instantly explode. "Trash!" Mizuhara Kaori scolded angrily. She ignored Shuehin and Inyoli. "Songlan, wait here as well," Lian Jiofeng said to Songlan. The latter nodded in agreement. Then, Mizuhara Kaori stepped into the heart of the demon abyss. Then, Lian Jiofeng followed closely behind him and walked in. Nietion took a deep breath, and his eyes became extremely determined. He stepped into the heart of the demon abyss. Boom! The moment he entered the heart of the demon abyss, Nietion suddenly felt a violent power appear. It pressed down on him from all directions and rushed into his body. It was like a wild beast, smashing his limbs and meridians. In an instant, Nietion was unable to endure the enormous demonic pressure. His body shook, and he vomited a mouthful of blood. Nietion, are you all right? Lian Jiufeng stepped forward and asked worriedly. I'm fine. Nietion shook his head to indicate that he was fine. Then, he let out a long breath, and his expression relaxed. Just now, he had entered the heart of the demon abyss. The demonic pressure had skyrocketed, and his martial physique had been unable to endure it. Now that he had adapted to it, he felt much better. Trash! Mizuhara Kaori looked coldly at Nietion and sneered disdainfully. Nietion didn't pay any attention to him and continued walking forward. After walking for a few dozen meters, Nietion vaguely sensed a huge object in front of him. He couldn't help but stop. Nietion, we've reached the core of the demon abyss. The huge stone in front of us is the 9-Li stone steel. Lian Jiufeng pushed forward and a ball of fire appeared. It flashed in the darkness and illuminated an extremely huge stone pillar. Nietion could vaguely see the appearance of the 9-Li stone steel. It was an extremely huge stone pillar. It was 100 meters wide and stood at the center of the 10,000 degrees demon abyss like a pillar that reached into the sky. Nietion, the 9-Li stone steel is a huge stone pillar. It's over 100 meters wide and over 10,000 meters tall. It's inscribed with complicated runes. It is rumored that this is a holy stone left behind by the ancient saints. Only martial practitioners with extraordinary talent can activate the stone steel. Lian Jiufeng frowned and explained to Nietion as he looked at the 9-Li stone steel. Nietion nodded slightly and fixed his eyes on the 9-Li clan stone steel. Sure enough, there were many complicated magical symbols engraved on the stone steel, each of which released a mysterious power. Is there any point in wasting words with him? It's not like he can understand what these runes are. Mizuhara Kaori sneered cold and sneered without any scruples. Nietion frowned. He didn't care about Mizuhara Kaori's mockery. Chapter 2086. Where have I seen these runes before? Nietion was puzzled as he tried his best to recall. Runes of slaughter. He finally remembered in the next moment. He had seen similar runes in the realm of darkness. They were the runes of slaughter. The runes of slaughter had been left behind by the slaughtered demon monarch, so they were undoubtedly saint-level runes. Therefore, the runes on the 9-Li stone steel were also saint-level runes. Nietion looked at the 9-Li stone steel. It was hard to imagine just how powerful the saints of ancient times were. Brat, it's your turn to perform now. I'd like to see how you're going to activate the 9-Li stone steel. Mizuhara Kaori had run out of patience. She raised her eyebrows and shouted arrogantly at Nietion. Nietion, try to sense the runes on the 9-Li stone steel with your consciousness. Lian Jiufeng glanced at Mizuhara Kaori and then said nervously to Nietion. Whether Nietion could activate the 9-Li stone steel would not only depend on whether he could obtain the 3 lives blood jade, but also on the bet with his life. Nietion nodded solemnly and sat down cross-legged, calming his mind. Lian Jiufeng retreated to the side and observed Nietion while guarding against Mizuhara Kaori. Nietion quickly entered a cultivation state and probed the 9-Li stone steel with his consciousness. At first, he did not feel anything special, but he was not in a hurry. Instead, he carefully sensed everything around him, especially the changes in the aura of the runes on the 9-Li stone steel. About a few minutes later, the 9-Li stone steel finally changed. The runes on it glowed with strange light, turning into rings of light that surged into Nietion's body. Lian Jiufeng and Mizuhara Kaori were stunned when they saw this. Their gazes turned strange. Nietion had actually resonated with the 9-Li stone steel. However, neither of them were too excited because they knew that this was only the beginning. The 9-Li stone steel emitted rays of light that were actually examining Nietion's talent, verifying whether Nietion was strong enough. Lian Jiufeng and Mizuhara Kaori had both passed this step before, but unfortunately, Neither of them had been able to obtain the recognition of the 9 stone tablet. After that, Lai Yin Jiufeng and Mizuhara Kori stared at Nietian. They were afraid that they would miss something. At this moment, Nietian felt extremely comfortable. The halo of light circulating within his body helped him resist most of the demonic pressure. Furthermore, it had a certain improvement effect on his martial body meridians. He felt that the light was like an omnipresent tentacle, searching for all the power in his body bit by bit. Next, halos of light continuously surged out from the 9 steel and entered Nietian's body. What's going on? Mizuhara Kaori felt that something was amiss. Her expression began to change, and her eyes began to tremble. When he activated the Julie Steel just now, he didn't trigger so many halos. Just who is this brat? Is his talent higher than mine? Mizuhara Kaori cried in her heart. Her gaze towards Niet Tian revealed a hint of unconcealable killing intent. Ever since he was young, he had always been known as the #1 monstrous genius of the 9 ancient races. This made him extremely confident in his talent. However, the fact that he failed to activate the 9 stone steel was a huge blow to him. If he hadn't activated the 9 stone steel, then it would have been fine. But if Nietian had activated the 9 stone steel, didn't that mean that Nietian's talent was higher than his? This was something that Mizuhara Kaori absolutely could not accept. He would not allow someone with greater talent than him to exist in this world. Brat, you better not activate the 9 stone steel. Otherwise, I will definitely kill you with my own hands. Mizuhara Kaori stared darkly at Nietian and said in his heart. Lai Yin Jiufeng watched Mizuhara Kaori's every move and couldn't help but feel nervous. He would not allow Nietian to die in Mizuhara Kaori's hands. Even after a long time had passed, the 9 stone steel continued to shine with light. Enough! It's already been so long. There's no way this brat can activate the 9 stone steel. Mizuhara Kaori's expression darkened. He took a step forward and prepared to interrupt Nietian. It wasn't that he was tired of waiting. He was just worried that Nietian would really activate the 9 stone steel. Stop! Lai Yin Jiufeng growled. He obviously wouldn't allow Mizuhara Kaori to interrupt Nietian. You're courting death. Mizuhara Kaori roared angrily. His aura suddenly rose. He was actually going to attack Lai Yin Jiufeng. But at this moment, a strange scene occurred. Boom! Nietian sat cross-legged on the ground, and an enormous aura suddenly burst forth from his body. Following that, layers upon layers of powerful energy gushed out of his body and spread towards the 9 stone steel. In the next moment, the Julie stone steel felt a powerful impact and immediately reacted. Layer after layer of light appeared, spreading out in all directions like a massive ripple. Most importantly, all the runes on the 9 stone steel seemed to have sensed the energy and began to shine with 5-colored light. The 9 stone steel that had slumbered for countless years seemed to have awakened all of a sudden. It began to unleash endless power. This energy first revolved around the Julie stone tablet, then it started to spread out. A boundless, dazzling light spread out in an instant, instantly lighting up the entire Demon Abyss core. Ha ha! Nietian, you really did activate the 9 stone steel. Lai Yin Jiufeng shouted like a madman when he saw this. No matter how stupid he was, he realized that Nietian had activated the 9 stone steel. No, impossible. This is impossible. On the other side, Mizuhara Kaori's reaction was completely different. His expression was blank as he shouted in shock. He could not believe what he was seeing. Mizuhara Kaori was the #1 genius of the 9 ancient races, but even he had not been able to activate the 9 stone steel. He could not accept that an inferior human like Nietian had actually activated the 9 stone steel. But in the next moment, Mizuhara Kaori's eyes shook and flashed with the most murderous light. Then he moved and shouted, "Brat, I'm going to kill you!" With a furious roar, Shui Yuan Xiang thrust her palm out. Instantly, a terrifying palm force surged out, morphed into a terrifying palm shadow, and pressed down on Nietian like a mountain. Nietian! Lai Yin Jiufeng was shocked by the sudden turn of events. His face turned pale as he cried out in shock. He wanted to save him, but it was too late. Boom! The terrifying palm landed on Niet Tion's body, but he did not move at all. Instead, he unleashed a five-colored light that shot toward Mizuhara Kaori. Mizuhara Kaori did not have time to react. She let out a scream and was sent flying. It was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Lion Jiufeng was stunned by the scene before him. He was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 2087. Bang! There was a muffled sound, and Lion Jiufeng was sent flying just like Mizuhara Kaori before he could even react. Right now, Niet Tion was connected to the nine-lee stone steel and was protected by it. Forget Mizuhara Kaori. Even someone stronger would not be able to harm him. Mizuhara Kaori and Lion Jiufeng flew out of the heart of the Devil Abyss. Their faces were pale, and they were clearly heavily injured. Especially Mizuhara Kaori. There was still blood at the corner of her mouth, and her aura was a little unstable. However, his eyes were cold and murderous as he stared at the heart of the Devil Abyss. Mizuhara Kaori, what happened? Bloodscar saw Mizuhara Kaori and Lion Jiufeng come out of the heart of the Devil Abyss in a sorry state. He could no longer remain calm and asked with a trembling voice, "Idiot, is there even a need to ask?" That human brat activated the nine-lee stone steel. Mizuhara Kaori was currently boiling with anger. She slammed a palm over and roared like a wild beast. Bloodscar steadied himself, and his expression froze. His mouth was wide open, but he couldn't make a sound. Beside him, Yuli was exactly the same as him. He also had an expression of extreme shock. At the same time, inside the heart of the Devil Abyss, Niet Tion sat upright, surrounded by five-colored light. The light was dazzling and brilliant, and he looked like a saint descending to the mortal world. His entire body gave off an extremely holy aura. All of his consciousness was focused on the nine-lee stone steel, and he could feel the dazzling power of light. Boom! 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 At this time, as the light on the nine-lee stone steel grew brighter and brighter, the entire steel actually started to shake. The myriad degrees demon abyss started to shake as well, as if a huge tsunami was about to happen. Inside the myriad degrees demon abyss, everyone felt this vast and boundless power. Their expressions were blank, and they didn't know what was happening. What's going on? Why is the myriad degrees demon abyss shaking? Look, what's that? Why is there rainbow light in the myriad degrees demon abyss? What's going on? Could it be that someone triggered the Jilly Stone Steel? Everyone sensed that the entire 10,000 degrees demon abyss was shaking, and at the same time, they saw circles of five-colored light appear within water. The originally black water became brilliant, and everyone looked incredibly shocked, unable to believe what they were seeing. It's really the Jilly Steel. Leave this place quickly. Someone finally came to his senses and screamed in fear. He started to rush toward the upper level of the myriad devil abyss. Up until now, the nine-lee stone tablet had only been activated once, and that was hundreds of thousands of years ago. It had long since been forgotten by people. No one knew what would happen in the myriad devil abyss, so it was better to leave as soon as possible. At this moment, outside the heart of the abyss, Yuli, the human brat, really activated the nine-lee steel. Who knows what will happen next? Let's leave the 10,000 degrees demon abyss. Bloodscar's eyes twinkled as he spoke to Yuli with a trembling voice. No one is allowed to leave. Before Yuli could speak, Mizuhara Kaori's furious voice rang out. She directly threatened, "I will kill anyone who dares to take even half a step out of here." After saying this, Mizuhara Kaori released a sharp and murderous aura of the five elements. His entire face became hideous and terrifying. Bloodscar and Yuli's expressions changed. They were so scared that they didn't dare to move. They didn't understand why Mizuhara Kaori wouldn't let them leave. Was Mizuhara Kaori really going to keep his promise and hand his life over to Niet Tion? Mizuhara Kaori, it looks like you're going to silence everyone. Lion Jiufeng had calmed down quite a bit. He glanced at Mizuhara Kaori, already knowing what the latter was thinking. With Mizuhara Kaori's personality, there was no way he would keep his promise. Right now, he was thinking of silencing everyone. He was guarding the heart of the abyss. The moment Nyetian came out, he would immediately kill Nyetian. At the same time, Mizuhara Kaori wanted to kill everyone present, including Bloodscar and Yuli. Nyetian had activated the 9 Li Stone Steel, but only a few people present knew about it. As long as Mizuhara Kaori killed everyone present, no one would know the truth. In that case, the person who activated the 9 Li Stone Steel would be him. This was Mizuhara Kaori's true plan. He wanted to kill everyone present and tell everyone that he was the one who activated the 9 Li Stone Steel. Mizuhara Kaori, your plan is very good, but what happens next is not up to you. Lion Jiufeng smiled coldly. The corner of his lips curled into a cold smile. At the same time, above the myriad degrees demon abyss, everyone could see that the myriad devil abyss was shaking violently, and there were actually endless waves surging up. The myriad degrees demon abyss had always been very calm. Now that it was surging with waves, something strange must have happened. High up in the sky, the 9 races' Saint Arbiters and the other elders wore shocked expressions. A moment later, they became wild with joy. They understood that what was happening in the myriad degrees demon abyss was the result of the 9 Li Stone Steel being activated. At that moment, the myriad degrees demon abyss began to emit multicolored light. The light surged out of the water and circulated in space. The entire world was dyed in multicolored light. Oh my God, someone has triggered the Jiuli Steel. The 9 Li Stone Steel is the stone of fate of our 9 ancient clans. It looks like the day of the 9 ancient clans revival isn't far away. The person who can change the fate of our 9 ancient clans has appeared. Everyone became wild with joy. They cried out in alarm as if they had gone mad. At that moment, even the Saint Arbiter was overjoyed. His aged face seemed to have instantly become several decades younger. It's been several 100,000 years. I have waited for several 100,000 years. The person who can change the fate of the 9 ancient clans has finally appeared. The Saint Arbiter finally couldn't contain the excitement in his heart anymore. He crazily shouted the words in his heart. 2 streams of hot tears flowed down his cheeks. Because the 9 Li Stone Steel was activated, the people of the 9 ancient clans all became wild with joy. However, not long after, when they personally saw that the person who activated the 9 Li Stone Steel was a human cultivator that they incomparably detested, it was unknown what kind of expression they would have. Rumble. Just at that moment, a loud rumble suddenly sounded out from the myriad degrees demon abyss. Following that, a huge stone pillar surged out from the water like a dragon breaking out of the abyss. 9 Li Stone Steel. It's a 9 Li Stone Steel. When the people of the 9 ancient clans saw the huge stone pillar rising from the water, they all cried out in alarm. Then they all knelt down with incomparably pious expressions. When the Lord Saint Arbiter saw the 9 Li Stone Steel rising from the water, his expression immediately froze. He was actually speechless. Back then, when the Netherworld Emperor activated the 9 Li Stone Steel, he was also present. However, the Netherworld Emperor had only caused the 9 Li Stone Steel to rise 100 meters out of the water. Yet now, the 9 Li Stone Steel had actually risen 1,000 meters out of the water. Chapter 2088. The Holy Swordsman and some of the older generation experts of the 9 ancient clans stood in the sky with shocked expressions. Most of them had seen the Netherworld Emperor activate the Jiuli Stone Steel before, so their shock was even more obvious. The last time the Jiuli Stone Steel was activated, it had not caused such a commotion. This time, whether it was the intensity of the 5-colored radiance or the height at which the Jiuli Stone Steel floated out of the water, both far surpassed the last time the Netherworld Emperor had done it. This undoubtedly meant that the person who activated the Jiuli Stone Steel was a cultivator even more terrifying than the Netherworld Emperor. At that moment, an old man stood up with a different glint in his eyes. Lord Holy Swordsman, who do you think the person who activated the Jiuli Stone Steel is? He was an elder of the Water Fairy clan, so he already had a guess in his heart. However, he was not sure, so he hoped to get confirmation from the Holy Swordsman. He felt that the person who activated the Julie Stone Steel this time was none other than Mizuhara Kaori. The other old men were equally excited as they waited for the Holy Swordsman to speak. At that moment, they also had a guess in their hearts. They all believed that the person who activated the Julie Stone Steel was Mizuhara Kaori. Mizuhara Kaori had always been the #1 monstrous genius of the 9 ancient clans. Furthermore, she was the personal disciple of the Holy Swordsman, so she was indeed the most likely person to activate the Julie Stone Steel. I don't know. However, to everyone's surprise, the Holy Swordsman thought for a long time before shaking his head. Then, his expression turned solemn. Everyone was stunned. They looked at the Holy Swordsman in confusion, trying to guess what he was thinking. As Mizuhara Kaori's teacher, the Holy Swordsman naturally understood his disciple's capabilities. He knew that with Mizuhara Kaori's talent, there was only a small possibility that she could activate the Julie Stone Steel. However, the Julie Stone Steel before them was clearly activated, so it was impossible for Mizuhara Kaori to activate it. However, the Holy Swordsman still had a trace of hope in his heart, so he did not give an absolute denial. At that moment, another face appeared in his mind. It was a silver-haired youth. The kid with the fiend god origin embryo. Could it be you who triggered the Julie Steel? The Saint Duelist thought to himself as an unconcealable worry appeared on his face. The face that appeared in his mind was none other than Niet Tion. Furthermore, he had long since learned that Niet Tion was a human with a legendary fiend god nascent embryo. This was why he had taken a few more glances at Niet Tion. The Saint Duelists were more inclined to choose Niet Tion over the 9 Stone Steel. However, because of Niet Tion's identity, this matter became complicated. The Holy Swordsmen were worried. If swordsmen were, the 9 swordsmen would be, and 9 swords, the 9 swordsmen who ancient 9 clans. Would it was precisely because of this that his expression became solemn. The people of the 9 clans had been waiting for the 9 Stone Steel to be activated for hundreds of thousands of years. But now it was a human. This was a huge irony. At that moment, the 9 ancient 9 clans were in a frenzy. The person who could change the fate of the 9 clans had finally appeared. At the same time, in the heart of the myriad degrees demon abyss, Niet Tion had already woken up. He stared at the Julie Stone Steel in front of him in a daze. The Julie Stone Steel rose into the air like a heaven-piercing stone pillar. It stood in the middle of the water domain and radiated a blinding light. Layer after layer of boundless energy was released, causing the entire myriad degrees demon abyss to tremble. Niet Tion was shocked by the scene before him and did not recover for a long time. At that moment, Fat Cat's voice rang out, reminding Niet Tion, "Niet Tion, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and move." Niet Tion snapped out of his daze and looked around. Only then did he notice that a white barrier had formed around the heart of the demon abyss, keeping Mizuhara Kaori and the others outside. "Niet Tion, that white barrier won't last much longer. You don't have much time left. You need to hurry and find the Dragon Spring Vein," Fat Cat urged Niet Tion. "Amen," Niet Tion nodded heavily. Then, he moved towards the bottom of the Julie Stone Steel. Right now, Niet Tion had to complete 2 things before the Julie Stone Steel returned to its original position. The first was to find the 3 Lives Blood Jade that Lion Jiofeng had mentioned. The second was to find the Dragon Spring Vein. Niet Tion arrived below the Julie Stone Steel. There was a huge pit beneath his feet. It looked like a bottomless abyss. The 3 Lives Blood Jade should be down there. Eyebrows furrowed, Niet Tion blurred into action. Like a nimble fish, he dove down into the abyss. As his body continued to descend, Niet Tion's body began to produce a very mysterious feeling. He felt as if the blood in his body had received some kind of response, gradually becoming agitated, and his chi and blood continuously churning in his body. "What's going on?" Niet Tion was puzzled. He couldn't help but look worried. "Niet Tion, don't worry. The tear of the princess in your body has sensed something. Fat Cat snickered and told Nyetian not to worry. Nyetian immediately came to a realization. His eyes couldn't help but burn with passion. Since the tear of the princess had sensed something, it meant that he was approaching the Three Lives Blood Jade. Although he didn't know what the Three Lives Blood Jade was, Nyetian guessed that it was closely related to the Underworld Emperor and the others. Otherwise, Lien Jiofeng wouldn't have used the Three Lives Blood Jade to recover his memories. As Nyetian got closer and closer to the bottom of the abyss, he could feel the blood in his body roiling. He actually felt like his body could explode at any moment. As his chi and blood surged, Nyetian also felt a raging, fiery power flowing through his body. His bones, blood, meridians grew stronger and stronger under the impact of this raging power. What's that? All of a sudden, just as Nyetian was about to reach the bottom of the abyss, he vaguely saw blood-red light spreading out from the depths of the abyss. Like ripples, it surged in the air in a steady rhythm. Nyetian, hurry up and go take a look. Fat Cat seemed to sense something and cried out in a trembling voice. Nyetian's eyes shook, and he couldn't hide the joy in them. He moved and flew towards where the scarlet light was coming from. His figure landed a few meters in front of him. A sparkling and translucent jade stone that was as red as blood appeared. Crimson halos spread out layer by layer and circulated in the space. At this moment, Nyetian felt the blood and energy in his body surge. He felt like he was losing control of his body. Chapter 2089. Although Nyetian had never seen the Three Lives Blood Jade before, he was very sure that the crimson red stone in front of him was the Three Lives Blood Jade. The Princess Tear and the Three Lives Blood Jade had an extremely strong connection. Nyetian felt as if the chi and blood in his body were about to combust, as if his entire body was being roasted by a raging fire. Nyetian, put away the Three Lives Blood Jade. The Fat Cat swallowed hard, but she managed to keep her cool and said to Nyetian in a trembling voice. Nyetian's eyes narrowed as he regained his composure. He walked over step by step and held the Three Lives Blood Jade in his hand. The moment he came into contact with the Three Lives Blood Jade, he suddenly felt a wave of extremely pure and hot energy suddenly surging into his body. It was like a wild beast was crazily attacking his body. In the blink of an eye, a terrifying pain spread throughout his body. Nyetian cried out in pain as the muscles in his body tensed up and the veins on his forehead and limbs bulged. The pain was too terrifying. It was as if a boundless force was tearing his body apart, trying to tear his bones and meridians into pieces. Roar! The supreme dragon vein in Nyetian's body reacted to the sudden pain and let out a deafening roar. Nyetian's face turned hideous, and his body twisted so much that he no longer looked human. Nyetian, what's wrong? The Fat Cat also screamed in shock, not knowing what was going on. Nyetian was in great pain, so he had no time to answer the Fat Cat. At that moment, the Fat Cat saw the Three Lives Blood Jade in Nyetian's hand emitting rays of blood-colored halos that shrouded Nyetian's body. Understand now. The Fat Cat reacted immediately upon seeing this scene and exclaimed, "This is the resonance between the Three Lives Blood Jade and the Princess Tear." It was obvious that the Three Lives Blood Jade and the Tear of a Princess had some sort of mysterious connection. Nyetian had fused with the Tear of the Princess, so the moment he touched the Three Lives Blood Jade, the Three Lives Blood Jade and the Tear of the Princess resonated. Although she knew what was going on, Fat Cat did not know what to do. She could only watch as Nyetian was in great pain. The Three Lives Blood Jade should be a holy relic, an item with a spiritual nature. It shouldn't be able to harm Nyetian, who possesses the Tear of the Princess. The Fat Cat could do nothing about what was happening. All she could do was pray in her heart. After a while, the blood-red light on the Three Lives Blood Jade gradually dimmed. Nyetian felt the pain in his body weaken, and he slowly calmed down. Nyetian, are you all right? Seeing that Nyetian had finally returned to normal, the Fat Cat let out a long sigh of relief, but she still asked worriedly. Nyetian had completely calmed down. He looked at the Three Lives Blood Jade in his hand with a puzzled expression. At the same time, he sensed his body and said with a frown, "I'm fine, but I feel that my martial physique has become a lot stronger." The fat cat nodded, then laughed and said, "The strength of your martial physique is indeed a lot stronger than before. It seems that the resonance between the 3 Lives blood jade and the tear of the princess has greatly enhanced your martial physique." Nietion nodded with a smile. He looked at the 3 Lives blood jade in his hand and frowned. "I feel that the power within the 3 Lives blood jade has become a lot weaker." "Why is that?" The fat cat chuckled, but did not explain anything. Instead, she said, "Nietion, put away the 3 Lives blood jade first. We don't have much time. Let's hurry and find the dragon spring vein." "Yes, the dragon spring vein." Nietion immediately reacted. He let out a strange cry and put away the 3 Lives blood jade. Next, Nietion took out the spirit dragon royal ring and released the ring seal. He directly opened the dragon ring, and the hidden dragon map appeared in front of him. Although he had already memorized the hidden dragon map, opening it now would make it easier for him to find the exact location of the dragon spring vein. According to the location on the hidden dragon map, the dragon spring vein should be nearby. Nietion carefully sensed the hidden dragon map and walked step by step. At the same time, he paid attention to the changes in the spirit dragon royal ring. The spirit dragon royal ring had a strong sense of the dragon's spring vein. However, according to Huadong, the dragon spring vein was protected by a powerful seal. The aura it emitted was very weak. Therefore, it was not easy to determine the exact location of the dragon spring vein. Nietion took one step at a time and was finally able to confirm that the dragon spring vein was in his vicinity. He moved bit by bit, constantly sensing the changes in the aura of the spirit dragon royal ring. Wong. At this time, the spirit dragon royal ring suddenly emitted a strange low hum. A ray of light appeared, condensing into a dragon-shaped image in the air. Nietion was stunned. His heart leaped to his throat, and his nerves were stretched taut. He didn't dare to move a muscle. He looked at the dragon-shaped image in front of him, not understanding what it meant. It was obvious that the dragon spring vein was right beside him. But now, what should he do to break the seal of the dragon spring vein and make it appear? Nietion, do you remember what that wretched old man said? Fat Cat's voice sounded, as if reminding Nietion. Nietion frowned. Of course, he knew that the wretched old man Fat Cat mentioned was Huadong. He tried hard to recall Huadong's words. Finally, he remembered something and exclaimed, "Lord High Priest said that every place where the dragon spring vein is preserved is protected by a powerful seal. Only those who can sense the dragon ring and nurture the dragon vein in their body can break the seal and obtain the dragon spring vein." "That's right." Fat Cat chuckled and said proudly, "You are the one who can sense the dragon ring. Therefore, I guess that your blood is the thing that can break the seal." "My blood?" Nietion was stunned for a moment. He looked at the dragon-shaped image in front of him and immediately understood. Without hesitation, he stretched out a hand, and a thin line of blood shot out from his fingertip into the dragon-shaped image. At this moment, the dragon-shaped image suddenly released a dazzling light. The image of the dragon on the image seemed to have come to life and danced in front of Nietion. Nietion was shocked by the scene in front of him and was speechless for a long time. Next, he carefully observed and found that the little light dragon was drawing some kind of complicated rune. This is some kind of space-time rune. Although Nietion couldn't understand what the rune was, he could feel that it was emitting a strong space-time aura. No wonder Nietion couldn't find the dragon spring vein, even though it was just next to him. It turned out that it was protected by a space-time seal. After a while, the little light dragon finally finished drawing the space-time rune. A space-time vortex appeared in the space, releasing a strong but gentle space-time aura. Chapter 2090. When Nietion saw the silver ball of light in the space-time vortex, his eyes widened, and he was completely dumbfounded. Even with the space-time vortex shielding him, he could still feel the boundless and powerful dragon aura contained within the silver ball of light. Without a doubt, the silver ball of light in the space-time vortex was what Nietion was looking for, the dragon spring vein. After searching for so long, he finally saw the legendary dragon's spring vein. One could imagine the shock and joy in Nietion's heart. He stood rooted to the ground for a dozen seconds before he finally reacted. Suppressing the joy in his heart, he began to sense the space-time vortex in front of him. He knew that space-time vortexes often contained extremely terrifying space-time pressure that couldn't be casually touched. Nietion, don't be afraid. Just take out the dragon spring vein. Fat Cat chuckled. Take it out. Nietion was stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. Just take it. This sovereign guarantees that nothing will happen to you. Fat Cat smiled proudly, appearing very confident. Nietion gulped. He slowly stretched out his arm and reached into the space-time vortex. I'm really fine. Nietion couldn't feel any pressure when he reached into the space-time vortex. He couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Hurry up and take out the dragon spring vein, then leave this place. Fat Cat didn't explain too much and hurriedly urged. Okay. Nietion agreed. He firmly grabbed the dragon's spring vein and directly pulled it out of the space-time vortex. Boom! The moment the dragon spring vein was pulled out of the space-time vortex, an incomparably powerful dragon aura was released. Soon after, it turned into 9 giant dragon silhouettes that charged in all directions. Rumble! Suddenly, the surrounding waters were hit by the 9 giant dragons. Monstrous waves rose into the sky, and the entire 10,000 degrees demon abyss trembled as if it was about to collapse. Nietion was startled by this sudden scene. He hurriedly looked at the dragon's spring vein in his hand, feeling extremely nervous. Nietion, hurry up and put the dragon spring vein into the spirit dragon king ring. Fat Cat was stunned for a moment before reminding Nietion. Nietion's eyes flickered, and he casually placed the dragon's spring vein into the spirit dragon king ring. Fatty, what happened just now? Nietion put away the dragon's spring vein. He was still in a state of shock and couldn't help but ask. The dragon spring vein has been sealed for so long. It has only just appeared, and the draconic aura is leaking out. Fat Cat explained casually, then said, Nietion, let's get out of here quickly. When the 9ly stone tablet falls, it'll be bad if we're trapped here. Nietion nodded and prepared to leave. The 3 lives blood jade and the dragon spring vein were already in his hands. There was no longer any meaning in staying here. Without any hesitation, Nietion shot up into the sky. Soon, he exited the abyss and saw the 9ly stone tablet again. At this time, the 9ly stone tablet had already begun to slowly descend. Nietion had come out in time. If he had been a few minutes later, he might have really been trapped under the 9ly stone tablet. Boom! He quietly watched from the side. When the 9ly stone tablet finally fell, a huge explosion sounded in the myriad degrees demon abyss. Then, everything returned to normal. Let's go. Nietion was extremely excited and prepared to leave this place immediately. He had already obtained the 3 lives blood jade and the dragon spring vein. He just hadn't had the time to carefully study them. Now is the time to leave the myriad degrees demon abyss. Do you want to leave? However, just as Nietion turned around, a low, murderous voice sounded. Then, a powerful killing intent appeared and directly enveloped Nietion. Mizuhara Kaori. Seeing the person in front of him, Nietion's face sank. He immediately had a bad feeling. Previously, he had made a bet with Mizuhara Kaori to see if he could activate the 9ly stone tablet. Now he had succeeded. However, from the looks of it, Mizuhara Kaori had no intention of fulfilling the bet. On the contrary, Mizuhara Kaori's face was filled with killing intent. Clearly, he wanted to kill Nietion. With Nietion's intelligence, he immediately saw through Mizuhara Kaori's thoughts. With a faint smile, he said, Mizuhara Kaori, looks like you want to silence me and take the credit for activating the 9ly stone tablet, right? Nietion, you're not that stupid after all. Mizuhara Kaori laughed and said, right now, I'm very glad that I didn't kill you earlier. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to help me activate the 9ly stone tablet. Mizuhara Kaori had already thought it through. As long as Nietion came out, he would kill him and take the credit for activating the 9ly stone tablet, becoming the hero of the 9 ancient clans. Mizuhara Kaori, you really are ambitious. Lien Jiufeng, who was not far away from Mizuhara Kaori, spoke coldly with a sinister smile on his face. He had seen through Mizuhara Kaori's scheme a long time ago. He just hadn't exposed it. Shui Hin and Inyuli looked at each other and understood what was going on. The two of them were not idiots. After looking at each other, they prepared to leave quietly. Shui Hin, Inyuli, where are you going? But at this moment, Mizuhara Kaori's cold voice rang out. He had been paying attention to Shui Hin and Inyuli since a long time ago. Since he wanted to take the credit of Nietian activating the 9 Li stone tablet for himself, he naturally had to kill everyone who knew the truth. Shu, Mizuhara Kaori, we are all members of the 9 ancient clans. We won't tell anyone that you want to take the credit for activating the 9 Li stone tablet. Shui Hin's eyes trembled. Even his voice was trembling. He knew that he was not Mizuhara Kaori's match. If he ran now, he would be courting death. Judging from Mizuhara Kaori's appearance, he would kill whoever ran first. All right, Mizuhara Kaori smiled sinisterly and said, if you don't want to die, then help me kill these people. As long as you listen to me, I, Mizuhara Kaori, promise not to kill you. Shui Hin and Inyoli were stunned. They looked at each other and nodded at the same time. They said, Mizuhara Kaori, we'll listen to you. Nietian's expression darkened when he saw that Shui Hin and Inyoli had actually been tricked by Mizuhara Kaori's words. Mizuhara Kaori was arrogant, ruthless, and vicious. He was not a person who kept his promises. If he really was a person who kept his promises, he wouldn't have gone back on his word and tried to kill Nietian instead. Shui Hin and Inyoli were really stupid to believe Mizuhara Kaori's lies. Shui Hin and Inyoli do it. Mizuhara Kaori sneered and growled. All right, Shui Hin and Inyoli answered and moved at the same time. They attacked Lien Jiufeng and Song Lan from the left and right. Chapter 2091. The moment Lien Jiufeng made his move, Song Lan moved as well. He unsheathed his holy sword, and the hum of a sword reverberated through the darkness of the water. Rumble, rumble. Violent explosions resounded non-stop in the water. Lien Jiufeng and the other 3 were already fighting each other. Nietian couldn't help but frown at the sight. Bloodskar and Grimdarkness were holding off Lien Jiufeng and Song Lan, so he had to fight Mizuhara Kaori alone. Mizuhara Kaori was only a late-stage paramount god. He was slightly weaker than Bloodskar and Grimdarkness, but he was undoubtedly the most terrifying of the 3. Given Nietian's current strength, it would be difficult for him to fight Bloodskar and Grimdarkness alone. There was no way he could fight Mizuhara Kaori. Nietian, in front of me, Mizuhara Kaori, you are nothing but an ant that I can crush at any moment. Mizuhara Kaori stared darkly at Nietian. His face was so dark that it looked like it was about to drip blood, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Is that so? Nietianling laughed and said provocatively, Mizuhara Kaori, I'm the one who activated the 9 Li stone steel, not you. If I, Nietian, am an ant, then you're even worse than an ant. Bullshit, Mizuhara Kaori roared angrily. His delicate face instantly turned sinister and terrifying. I, Mizuhara Kaori, am a #1 monster of the 9 Li clan, and you are just an inferior human. I'll kill you right now and show the 9 Li stone steel that it has chosen the wrong person this time. Mizuhara Kaori had been known as a monster since he was young, but now he was being mocked by Nietian as worse than an ant. How could he not be angry? Mizuhara Kaori will know soon enough whether or not the 9 Li stone steel has chosen the wrong person. Nietianling sneered disdainfully. Stinking ant, you're courting death. Sensing the disdain in Nietian's eyes, Mizuhara Kaori was instantly enraged. Her entire body's aura surged, and she forcefully withstood the powerful demonic pressure and released a boundless 5-element suppression. Without the slightest hesitation, Nietian unleashed his 3 forbidden magics, causing his energy to skyrocket. In the blink of an eye, he was as strong as a late paramount god, which allowed him to break free of the 5 phases pressure. Although Mizuhara Kaori was powerful, Nyetion was not someone to be trifled with. It would be a fool's dream to think that he could defeat Nyetion with his aura alone. Good boy, you do have some tricks up your sleeve. Mizuhara Kaori was taken aback for a moment. He did not expect Nyetion's strength to rise to a whole new level in an instant. However, he sneered and said, "But that's all there is to it. Like I said, you're nothing but an ant in front of me. If I want to, I can crush you to death at any time." With a cold voice, Mizuhara Kaori thrust her palm out. Instantly, 100-meter-long palm shadow appeared. The water in the water was directly pushed aside, and the roaring palm energy pressed down on Nyetion. Nyetion's eyes flickered as he exclaimed inwardly, "So strong." He knew that Mizuhara Kaori was stronger than Bloodscar in grim darkness, but he could never have guessed that she was this strong. After all, they were in the depths of the myriad degrees devil abyss, and the devil pressure in the area was immense. Given Nyetion's current level of strength, he could only unleash a 10-meter-long sword projection. Mizuhara Kaori, on the other hand, could unleash a 100-meter-long palm projection. The difference in strength was too obvious. Devil God Sword Will. Nyetion did not hesitate. The Devil God Sword will in his body gushed forth. At the same time, his blood and chi gushed out in all directions, fusing together with the sword in 10 around him. A 20-meter-long sword projection appeared, whistling through the air. This was Nyetion's strongest sword strike. Not only did he use the Devil God Sword Will, he even ignited his blood and chi to unleash a forbidden technique. Rumble! The instant the palm and sword collided, a deafening sound rang out. The sword projection was directly shattered, and the violent palm projection weakened slightly. However, it still continued to press down on Nyetion. In that moment of crisis, Nyetion activated the violet heavenly lightning battle armor, and a layer of lightning armor appeared around his body. Pump! As the palm landed, a muffled sound rang out. The palm projection and the lightning armor shattered at the same time, and Nyetion's silhouette was flung backwards. Before he could stabilize himself, he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. In the next instant, a pair of astral soul wings appeared behind Nyetion's back. With a flap of his wings, he finally stabilized himself, but his countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper. This fellow's strength is so strong. Nyetion stabilized himself, and a frown appeared on his face as his eyes flickered. Mizuhara Kaori's strength was simply too monstrous, even more terrifying than what he had expected. Luckily, when Nyetion obtained the 3 Lives Blood Jade, his martial physique became much stronger. If not, even if he didn't die from that palm strike, he would most likely be severely injured. Mizuhara Kaori, who possessed a powerful 5-elemental bloodline, was indeed a monstrous opponent. Nyetion, you're not a match for this brat. Let's soccer deal with him. At this moment, Fat Cat's anxious voice rang out. He could already tell that Mizuhara Kaori could rely on her 5-elemental bloodline to offset a portion of the devilish pressure in the myriad devil abyss. Given Nyetion's current strength, there was no way he could be a match for Mizuhara Kaori. If they were in a normal environment, Nyetion might have a chance. But in the myriad devil abyss, it was impossible. After all, his true strength was only that of a late-stage overgod, while Mizuhara Kaori was a late-stage paramount god. Nyetion's eyes trembled slightly. This Mizuhara Kaori was too arrogant. He really wanted to use the 9-fold Chaos Beast to slap this fellow to death. But in the end, he held himself back. That was because Fat Cat and the massacring demon Venerable had warned him not to use the 9-fold Chaos Beast. If Nyetion used the 9-fold Chaos Beast, it was very likely that he would attract unknown, terrifying enemies. Let's soccer do it. Nyetion nodded slightly, and the 9-fold Chaos Beast appeared in his hand. Back then, he had brought Sakura Kaori with him just for this moment, to save his life at the most crucial moment. Sakura Kaori's figure emerged from the 9-fold Chaos Beast. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, and he knew the situation in front of him. He said indifferently, "Nyetion, back off. Leave this person to me. Okay. Tion nodded, and his figure retreated 100 meters. But he was a little worried, because he was not sure if Sakura Kaori was a match for Mizuhara Kaori. Tion estimated that Mizuhara Kaori's current battle strength was at least on the same level as Ghost Martial Wild Sand. And Sakura Kaori's battle strength was not necessarily on the same level as Ghost Martial Wild Sand. Huh. When Mizuhara Kaori saw Sakura Kaori appear, his cold eyes couldn't help but frown, and he said coldly, "Don't you feel ashamed to ask a little baby to help you?" Mizuhara Kaori was very depressed that he had not been able to kill Tion with a single palm strike. From his point of view, Tion was really the kind of ant that could be killed at any time. Unfortunately, Tion's strength was far beyond his expectations. At this moment, a 6- or 7-year-old child suddenly appeared in front of him. This made Mizuhara Kaori feel angry and humiliated. An extremely rare 5 elements attribute. You have the qualifications to make me take action. Sakura Kaori looked at Mizuhara Kaori cold, and immediately released a frightening sword intent from his body. A huge sword force rushed up to the sky, and its momentum was like a rainbow. Chapter 2092. The moment Sakura released his sword aura, Tion suddenly felt that his sword aura was much stronger than before. It seemed that after Sakura absorbed the blood-weeping sword infant in Lien Wui's body, his strength had increased a lot. Tion was a bit worried about Sakura just now, but he wasn't so worried now. With the latter's strength, even if he couldn't defeat Mizuhara, he should still be able to protect himself. Little doll, how dare you? Being ridiculed by Sakura, Mizuhara Kaori was instantly enraged. With a loud roar, she dashed forward and sent a powerful palm strike toward Sakura. Sword art, God slaying. Sakura didn't even look at it. He directly stabbed out with his sword. Immediately, a 100-meter-long sword shadow whistled out and attacked Mizuhara. Boom! The sword intent was extremely sharp and murderous. The moment the sword shadow swept past, the palm shadow in the air was directly shattered. In the next moment, Mizuhara Kaori's figure was sent flying, leaving a trail of blood in the water. One sword, just one sword, and Sakura directly injured Mizuhara? Tion was stunned by the scene in front of him and was momentarily speechless. He had never thought that Sakura's strength would be so terrifying that he could defeat Mizuhara with one sword. Just from the power of Sakura's sword, the difference between Tion and him was still very large. How is this possible? Mizuhara stabilized her figure. Her body was drenched in blood, and her expression was extremely shocked. Her eyes were wide open, and she couldn't believe the scene in front of her. How could he believe that he, the number 1 monster of the 9 clans, would be defeated by a 6- or 7-year-old baby in one sword? Humiliation. This was a great humiliation. Mizuhara couldn't accept it. The others were also shocked by Sakura's sword. They were dumbfounded and couldn't speak for a long time. The corner of Lien Jiufeng's mouth twitched when he saw Sakura. He laughed inwardly. Tion, so you have such an expert by your side. It seems that I have underestimated you. In reality, neither Bloodscar nor you could stop Lien Jiufeng. He just wanted to see what other heaven-defying means Tion had. That was why he hadn't helped. Looking at it now, it was correct for him not to make a move. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to force Sakura out. Although he was only an early paramount god right now, he had the meridians of 3 lives. The meridian of 3 lives couldn't completely nullify the demonic pressure, but it did reduce the amount of pressure the blazing ninefold had to endure. Therefore, his current combat power was not much weaker than Mizuhara's. You have an extremely rare 5 elemental attribute. I don't want to kill you. At this time, Tion opened his mouth and said coldly, "That sword strike just now was a warning. If you don't leave now, the next sword strike will take your life." Tion stared blankly as he listened. Only now did he realize that Sakura didn't use his full strength in that sword strike just now. Casually defeating Mizuhara Kaori, the current Sakura was so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end. Mizhara Kaori's eyes trembled like a wild beast that was about to go berserk. However, he didn't dare to move. He knew that Sakura really did have the power to kill him. "Let's go, Nie Tian," Sakura said indifferently. He couldn't be bothered to waste words with Mizhara Kaori. He looked at Nie Tian and said indifferently. Nie Tian nodded slightly and prepared to leave. "Wait!" But Lion Jiufeng suddenly stepped forward and blocked Nie Tian's path. He smiled faintly and said, "Nie Tian, you seem to have forgotten something." Nie Tian's eyes focused. He naturally knew what Lion Jiufeng wanted. He couldn't help but laugh. "Lion Jiufeng, I've already obtained the 3 live blood jade, and it's on me right now. However, I can't give it to you right now. When we leave the 9 demon realm, I will definitely give it to you." What Lion Jiufeng wanted was the 3 lives blood jade, but Nie Tian wouldn't give it to him immediately. He wanted to study it first. The 3 lives blood jade was related to Cher's memory awakening. Nie Tian naturally had to know what it was. Lion Jiufeng shook his head and sneered. "Sorry, Nie Tian, but I want the 3 lives blood jade right now." Nie Tian frowned and then glanced at Sakura. He said indifferently, "Lion Jiufeng, do you think you can take the 3 lives blood jade from me with him around?" Nie Tian admitted that Lion Jiufeng was very strong, but he didn't think the latter was stronger than Sakura. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the current Sakura had the power to kill Lion Jiufeng in an instant. An expert whose soul has been reborn, a legendary swordsman, is indeed very strong. Lion Jiufeng's eyes trembled slightly. He looked strangely at Sakura and then said, "Maybe he is very strong in front of others, but in front of me, he doesn't even have the chance to fight." Arrogant. Dishir Tian's face darkened when he heard Lion Jiufeng's words. He growled coldly, but he seemed to sense something. His entire body froze, and his young face was filled with incomparable shock. "Sakura, what's wrong?" Nie Tian was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. He cried out in alarm and hurried to Sakura's side. Right now, Sakura's face was as white as a sheet of paper. His forehead was drenched in sweat, and his aura had actually weakened in an instant. He stared at Lion Jiufeng in terror. He couldn't even speak. "Lion Jiufeng, what did you do to him?" Nie Tian supported Sakura and stared coldly at Lion Jiufeng. He roared angrily. "Don't worry, he won't die. It's just that the sword intent in his body has been temporarily sealed." Lion Jiufeng smiled darkly and looked completely at ease. "His sword intent has been sealed?" Nie Tian went blank for a moment. Eyebrows furrowed. He scanned Sakura with his soul sense, and his expression flickered as he exclaimed, "Blood-weeping, sword-nascent soul." He felt that the sword intent in Sakura's body had completely disappeared. It had been sealed inside the blood-weeping sword infant. How is this possible? How did Lion Jiufeng do it? "It seems that you know that he has the blood-weeping sword infant." Lion Jiufeng laughed and said, "But you probably don't know that the blood-weeping sword infant comes from the 9 demon realm. Unfortunately, the blood-weeping sword infant is one of the 3 great flowers of the ancient Ming race. I didn't think that he would have the blood-weeping sword infant. It seems that even the heavens are helping me." Lion Jiufeng. Nie Tian's face was as dark as death. His entire body was trembling. The blood-weeping sword infant came from the 9 demon realm, and it was one of the 3 great flowers of the ancient Ming race. This was something Nie Tian could never have imagined. "Nie Tian, I know that you are a person who values relationships. This is your strength, but also your weakness." Lion Jiufeng smiled cold and said, "So if you don't want anything to happen to this senior who has been reborn, hand over the 3 lives blood jade obediently." Lion Jiufeng was extremely smart. He could see that Sakura was an expert who had been reborn. Chapter 2093. Nie Tian's expression was dark as he stared at Lion Jiufeng with murderous intent. He knew Lion Jiufeng's personality very well. He was extremely vicious, and he would do as he said. If he didn't hand over the 3 lives blood jade now, Lion Jiufeng would really kill Sakura. However, the 3 lives blood jade was related to Cher's memories. Nie Tian was unwilling to hand it over now. "Nie Tian, you have to give me the 3 lives blood jade sooner or later. I don't think you want anything to happen to this senior." do you? Lion Jiufeng saw that Nie Tian was still hesitating and tried to tempt him. Nie Tian frowned and said coldly, Lion Jiufeng, you don't need to provoke me. You just want the 3 lives blood jade. I'll give it to you. Lion Jiufeng's words were to tempt Nie Tian, but they were the truth. Nie Tian would have to hand over the 3 lives blood jade sooner or later. However, he wanted to spend a little more time studying the 3 lives blood jade. But now, in order to prevent Sakura from being in danger, Nie Tian decided to hand over the 3 lives blood jade. Nie Tian flipped his hand, and a blood-red jade appeared in his palm. It was the 3 lives blood jade. It really is the 3 lives blood jade. Lion Jiufeng's pupils shrank the moment he saw the 3 lives blood jade. He cried out in excitement. The 3 lives blood jade was something he had been searching for. It was right in front of him and within reach. How could he not be excited? The 3 lives blood jade, it's yours. Nie Tian glanced at the 3 lives blood jade in his hand. Although he was unwilling, he still threw it over. Lion Jiufeng's eyes trembled when he saw that Nie Tian really threw the 3 lives blood jade over. He moved and grabbed it. If you want the 3 lives blood jade, ask the god slaughtering sword in my hand first. But at this moment, a voice that was as cold as ice suddenly rang out. Then, a sword suddenly whistled out, directly attacking Lion Jiufeng. Sakura, everything happened in the blink of an eye. Nie Tian suddenly reacted. When he saw the person who had attacked, he let out a strange cry. He had never thought that the person who made the move at this moment would actually be Sakura Tian. Swoosh! In the next instant, the incredibly sharp sword descended, and a strange, crisp sound rang through the air. The 3 lives blood jade had actually been cut in half, and one of Lion Jiufeng's arms had been severed as well. Blood immediately gushed out of the wound, and half of his body was dyed red. A dash! Suddenly, Lion Jiufeng howled like a pig being slaughtered. He looked like a ferocious beast bathed in blood. Even his eyes had turned scarlet and bloody. Lion Jiufeng's body trembled. At this moment, Nie Tian and Songlan reacted at the same time and made their moves. The 2 of them were very fast, and they leaped out like fish. Each of them took half of the 3 lives blood jade. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Lion Jiufeng roared furiously when the 2 of them landed on the ground. He roared madly. I clearly sealed your sword intent in the blood tier sword infant. How are you still able to use your sword intent? He looked at Sakura Tian in shock. He could not believe the scene in front of him at all. He was very sure that he had already sealed Sakura Tian's sword intent. So how could the latter still unleash such a terrifying sword strike? Nie Tian was also very puzzled. He had sensed Sakura Tian's body just now, and the latter's sword intent had indeed been sealed. So what was going on with that sword strike just now? You think a mere seal can seal my sword intent? You're underestimating a legendary swordsman too much, Sakura Tian said solemnly. Sakura said in a deep voice. His whole body released an enormous and boundless sword momentum, like a sharp sword, standing there. Why you forcefully broke through the blood-weeping sword infant's sword intent seal. Lion Jiufeng's expression changed as he cried out in shock. You're not too stupid after all, Sakura Tian smiled cold. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Damn it, Lion Jiufeng roared angrily. He then looked at Songlan and shouted, Let's go. At this time, Songlan had already obtained half of the 3 lives blood jade. Although he did not know if it was complete, it was enough. Lion Jiufeng had never imagined that Sakura would forcefully break through the blood-weeping sword infant's sword intent seal. If his arm had not been cut off by Sakura Tian, he might have been able to fight. But right now, he was definitely not Sakura Tian's match, so he could only leave first. Lion Jiufeng and Songlan moved and left directly. Seeing that Sakura Tian had no intention of stopping them, Nie Tian did not act rashly. He also had half of the 3 lives blood jade with him, so he was in no hurry. Lion Jiufeng and Songlan quickly disappeared. Just at this time, Disher Tian's body suddenly trembled and the aura around him instantly dispersed. Immediately after, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His young face became as pale as paper and his body trembled, unable to stand. Sakura Tian. Seeing this, Nyetian moved to Socration's side and supported him. He asked anxiously, "Are you all right?" In fact, Nyetian could see that Socration was holding on with all his might. Otherwise, with Socration's temperament, he would not have let Lian Jufeng leave so easily. "I just forcefully broke through the sword intense seal, and now I'm suffering from the blood-weeping sword infant's backlash. I need to rest," Socration said with difficulty. His entire body was limp, and his aura was very weak. Socration returned to the 9 extremities first. Nyetian hurriedly opened the 9 extremities and let Socration return. At the same time, Fat Cat's figure also flashed and entered the 9 extremities. Nyetian knew that Socration suffered from the backlash of the blood-weeping sword infant, and the consequences would be very serious. It was not something that could be recovered with just a little rest. Now that Fat Cat had entered the 9 extremities, she should be able to guarantee Socration's survival. "Hurry up and leave." Nyetian was worried about Socration's injuries and did not dare to delay any longer. He prepared to leave immediately. "You want to leave?" But at this moment, 2 figures appeared and blocked Nyetian's path. "What? Do you two want to take the credit for activating the 9 stone steel, just like Mizuhara Kaori?" Nyetian's face darkened when he saw that the people blocking his way were Bloodscar and Inyoli. He said coldly, "Can I?" Bloodscar smiled coldly, and the killing intent in his eyes intensified. Since Mizuhara Kaori could take the credit for activating the 9 stone steel, why couldn't he? "Bloodscar and Yoli, you 2 pieces of trash want to take the credit for activating the 9 stone steel? What a joke." Mizuhara Kaori's cold laughter suddenly sounded from the side, and it carried a strong sense of ridicule. Bloodscar suddenly turned around and looked at Mizuhara Kaori coldly. He said arrogantly, "Mizuhara Kaori, you're already heavily injured. If I want to, I can kill you at any time. You still dare to be arrogant in front of me? You're simply courting death. Bloodscar, don't talk nonsense with them. Kill the 2 of them, and the ones who activated the 9 stone steel will be the 2 of us." And Yoli smiled coldly, and his eyes that were as dark as the abyss revealed an extremely cold, killing intent. Chapter 2094. How is this possible? Shuehen and Inyoli exclaimed at the same time when they saw Mizuhara Kaori's aura. Mizuhara Kaori was clearly heavily injured just now. How did his aura become so strong? When Nyetian saw this, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He was quite surprised. Mizuhara Kaori was heavily injured by Sakura's sword, but now his injuries were almost healed. Mizuhara Kaori's recovery ability was abnormal. It was not much worse than Nyetian's. "Humph!" Mizuhara Kaori snorted and said, "The terror of the 5 elements bloodline is not something you trash can imagine. I want to ask you 2 trash. How are you going to kill me?" He was able to recover his strength in such a short period of time because of the 5 elements bloodline. The 5 elements bloodline, combining the 5 elements, not only made Mizuhara Kaori's martial physique more terrifying than other martial artists of the same level, it also made his recovery ability very abnormal. "Damn it!" Shuehen and Inyoli growled at the same time. The ruthlessness in their eyes did not diminish. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality with Mizuhara Kaori, it was useless to kneel and beg for mercy. They might as well fight with their lives on the line. Moreover, the 2 of them believed that even if Mizuhara Kaori's strength had recovered, he was still injured. If the 2 of them joined forces, they might not lose to Mizuhara Kaori. Nyetian, who was watching from the side, was baffled by the scene in front of him. Mizuhara Kaori, Shuehen, and Inyoli were actually going to kill each other. This was really funny. "Inyoli, let's kill Mizuhara Kaori first, then deal with that human brat," Shuehen said coldly. Layers of blood-red light were released from his body. His entire body emitted an extremely bloody aura. Inyoli also activated the secluded night boundary and enveloped Mizuhara Kaori. Nyetian watched from the side and was ready to find an opportunity to leave. Since the 3 of them were killing each other, this was undoubtedly a good opportunity for Nyetian to escape. "You 2 idiots, do you really think you can kill me, Shuhara Kaori?" Mizuhara Kaori was trapped in the Silent Night barrier, but she was very arrogant. With a roar, the power of the 5 elements around her suddenly rose. A mere barrier wants to trap me? Dream on. Mizuhara Kaori roared and struck out with her palm. In an instant, the extremely violent power of the 5 elements burst out and turned into a palm shadow that rolled out. Boom! The next moment, with a loud bang, the secluded night boundary collapsed. What powerful strength! Nietion's eyes narrowed as he was deeply shocked by Mizuhara Kaori's combat strength. Previously, he had also broken through Yu Li's Silent Night barrier twice, but he had relied on the natural restraining power of the demon god. At this moment, Mizuhara Kaori was using brute force to break open the Silent Night enchantment. One could imagine how strong she was. What was more frightening was that Mizuhara Kaori was still injured. If he was at his peak, his strength would be even more terrifying. How is this possible? The secluded night enchantment was instantly broken, and Yuli let out a strange cry. His figure moved, turning into a ball of black fog. He actually wanted to escape. Trying to escape? Mizuhara Kaori roared and reached out with his hand. The water within a kilometer radius was directly pushed away, revealing Yuli's figure. Mizuhara Kaori, don't kill me. And Yuli cried out in alarm and retreated in an attempt to escape. Unfortunately, it was too late. Mizuhara Kaori's palm came crashing down. The huge palm shadow was like a mountain, crashing down with an endless amount of power. A glaring blood mist appeared in the air, and Yuli Li was directly smashed into meat paste. This guy is so strong. The bloody and violent scene caused Nietion's eyes to widen, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Mizuhara Kaori was truly terrifying. Not only did he break the Silent Night enchantment in an instant, he actually killed Yu Li with a single palm strike. This combat strength was simply terrifying. After all, Yu Li was a peak paramount god and one of the 3 evildoers of the demon clan. There was no doubt that he was strong. Unfortunately, his opponent was the even more terrifying Mizuhara Kaori. This kid's 5 elements blood meridians can counteract most of the devil chi. If not, his combat strength wouldn't be so terrifying. At least he wouldn't have been able to kill that guy from the Dark Demon Clan with a single palm strike. Fat Cat's voice rang out, but it was very calm because he could see clearly. The reason why Mizuhara Kaori was so terrifying was because his 5 elements blood meridians were resistant to devil pressure. Under normal circumstances, it would not have been so easy for him to kill Yu Li. Yu Li, a genius of the Dark Demon Clan, had been killed by Mizuhara Kaori just like that. Yu Li is dead. You'll be next. After killing Yu Li with a single palm strike, Mizuhara Kaori's cold gaze swept over Bloodscar, his eyes filled with an icy coldness. Shui Hung froze for a moment, unable to conceal the fear on his horrified face. The scene of Mizuhara Kaori killing Yu Li with a single palm strike was too terrifying. It directly crushed Bloodscar's faith, causing him to lose all will to resist. Mizuhara Kaori, Lord Shui, young Master Shui, Prince Shui, I beg you, don't kill me, spare me. Bloodscar's eyes trembled. His knees buckled, and he knelt in front of Mizuhara Kaori. Even his words sounded a little crazy. At this moment, he was afraid. He was really afraid. He did not want to die. He wanted to live, so he knelt down. Nietion couldn't help but frown as he looked at Bloodscar. Undisguised contempt appeared on his face. Bloodscar had been so arrogant before, but he did not expect him to be a coward who was afraid of death. Unfortunately, his current actions were completely useless. Mizuhara Kaori was a ruthless person. How could she let him go just because he knelt down and begged for mercy? Bloodscar, since you and Yuli are so close, how can I separate you two? You'd better go down and accompany him. As expected, Mizuhara Kaori smiled cold, took a step forward, and punched down. Boom! The powerful palm shadow was like breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Before Shui Hen could react, he directly turned into a bloody light and dissipated. Bloodscar, the prodigy of the bloody demon tribe, had the same fate as Yu Li, died at Mizuhara Kaori's hands. Not even his bones were left. Blood scar. And you, Lee, trash like you were worthy of being called the three great evildoers. What a joke. Mizuhara Kaori's eyes were filled with killing intent as she spoke. Nietion looked at Mizuhara Kaori and frowned. This person was truly terrifying. Not only was he strong, he was also vicious enough to kill without batting an eye. Nietion, it's your turn now. Mizuhara Kaori suddenly turned around and glared at Nietion like a ferocious beast. Her killing intent enveloped him, causing the surrounding atmosphere to become deathly silent. Nietion's expression changed slightly. Then he focused his gaze. It was not fear in his eyes, but steel-like determination. Chapter 2095. Nietion looked at Mizuhara Kaori with a gloomy face. He did not expect the latter to be so strong that she could kill Bloodscar and Yoli in the blink of an eye. Just now, Nietion did have the chance to escape, but now it was not so easy for him to do so. Nietion, do you really think you'll be able to escape now that you don't have that reborn soul? Mizuhara Kaori smiled cold and stepped forward. The aura around her turned into a terrifying pressure that shrouded Nietion. Nietion retreated slightly, and the 9 extremities appeared in his palm. With his current strength, he was not strong enough to fight against Mizuhara Kaori. If he wanted to leave this place, he needed help. Among the 9 extremities, other than Fat Cat and Sakura, there was also Rui Chinyu. However, Nietion obviously would not let Rui Chinyu come out to help because the latter was not Mizuhara Kaori's opponent. Sakura was suffering from the backlash of the blood-weeping sword infant. At this moment, the situation was critical, and he could not help. Nietion took out the 9 extremities because there was a powerful existence among them. The Golden Leo. The Golden Leo was one of the 4 great ancient beasts. Ever since Nietion obtained it, he had kept it in the 9 extremities. Now was the time for it to show its strength. Nietion, accept your death. Mizuhara Kaori did not waste any more words. With a loud roar, she struck out with her palm. A mountainous and ocean-like aura was released and pressed down on Nietion. Almost at the same time, a ray of light was released from the 9 extremities. Immediately, a figure as red as fire appeared. Like a whistling flame arrow, it pounced directly at Mizuhara Kaori. Boom! The next moment, a loud explosion was heard. The palm in the air was shattered. Endless flame energy spread into a sea of fire and attacked Mizuhara Kaori. What is this? The sudden scene caused Mizuhara Kaori to scream. Immediately, she was forced to retreat 100 meters. This is the moment. Nietion's eyes trembled when he saw this, and then he revealed a wisp of wild joy. His figure flashed, and he stepped onto the Golden Leo party and said loudly, "Little fellow, let's go." Roar. Jean, too, was very intelligent and could understand Nietion's words. He threw his head back and roared. His figure flashed, and like a burning flame, he dashed toward the sky. Currently, Jean, too, was more than 20 meters tall. Golden flame energy surged around him, making him look like a raging flame. His expression was ferocious. Nietion knew that even though Jean too had forced Mizuhara Kaori to retreat, it did not mean that Jean too could defeat her. Just now, Mizuhara Kaori didn't understand the situation, so she was afraid and retreated. Otherwise, Jean might not be able to repel him. Even so, Gold Leo was still very strong. His bestial form was incredibly tough, and with the power of his golden flames, he was strong enough to fight an ordinary peak paramount god. Damn it! Mizuhara Kaori suddenly came to her senses. She let out a furious roar and slammed her palm down. Fierce palm shadows whizzed towards Nietion, and Jean Tuesday Nietion felt the terrifying power surging toward him, and his aura surged. Starlight Heaven Slash appeared in his hand, and he slashed with it. Rumble. Bang. The moment the palm shadow and the sword shadow collided, the sword shadow shattered, but the palm shadow's attack weakened slightly. At this time, Jean suddenly turned around and spat out a pillar of golden flame, shattering the palm shadow. Nietion was taken aback by Jean's actions, and then he laughed with wild joy. "Ha! Little fellow, I didn't know you could breathe fire." Roar! Roar! Jean roared twice, looking very pleased with himself. Bastard! 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 Mizuhara Kori's last attack was blocked by Nietion and Jinin, and she couldn't help but roar in anger. But now, Nietion and Jin were already far away, and it was impossible for her to chase after them. At the same time, Nietion stepped on Jinin, and Mizuhara Kori was already 1,000 meters behind. "Little fellow, it's all thanks to you this time." Seeing that Mizuhara Kori couldn't chase after him, Nietion smiled and slowed down. Roar! Roar! Jinin roared twice, and the golden flames on his body flickered, as if he was taking credit from Nietion. "All right, little fellow, go back to the 9 ultimates." Nietion lightly stepped on Jinin's head, and then took out the 9 ultimates and let Jin return to the 9 ultimates. Then Nietion steadied himself and prepared to find Huadong and Mushi, and then leave the Devil Abyss with them. "I wonder how Sakura is doing. I have to leave this place as soon as possible." As Nietion spoke, he moved slowly at the bottom of the Devil Abyss based on his memory. At the moment, his perception ability could only allow him to clearly sense an area of about 10 meters around him, so it wasn't easy to find Huadong and the others. Nietion. Just as he rose for about a few hundred meters, a voice suddenly rang out in the darkness, and he was stunned. "Lord High Priest." Nietion immediately realized that it was Huadong's voice that rang in his ears, and he couldn't help but call out in joy. Then Huadong and the others appeared, and their faces were filled with joy. They already knew that the Julie Stone tablet had been activated, but they weren't too sure if the person who activated the Julie Stone tablet was Nietion. However, Huadong believed that the person who activated the Julie Stone tablet was Nietion. "Nietion, are you all right? Was the person who activated the Julie Stone tablet you?" Mushi directly came to Nietion's side when she saw him, and her exquisite face was filled with unconcealable excitement. The Black Kuin and Black Shark brothers also looked at Nietion with burning eyes, and they seemed to be filled with anticipation. "That's me." Nietion nodded slightly. "It's really you." Mushi, Black Kuin, and Black Shark's expressions instantly changed, and they exclaimed at the same time. Then, they were petrified on the spot. Although they had long guessed that the person who activated the Julie Stone tablet was Nietion, they were still incomparably shocked when they received confirmation from him. The Julie Stone tablet was the stone of fate of the 9 ancient clans. It had been silent for hundreds of thousands of years, and now that it had really been activated by someone, how could Mu Shi and the others not be shocked? "Nietion, did you get that thing?" Huadong's reaction was rather calm, and after being stunned for a moment, he calmed down a lot. He took a step forward and asked with blazing eyes. What he was concerned about wasn't whether Nietion had activated the Julie Stone tablet, but whether Nietion had obtained the Dragon Spring Vein. "I got it." Of course, Nietion knew that the thing Huadong was talking about was the Dragon Spring Vein. "I got it. I really got it." "Ha ha!" Huadong looked at Nietion and was stunned for a moment. Then, he laughed maniacally, as if he had lost his mind. "High Priest, what's wrong with you?" The Black Kuin and Black Shark brothers were awakened by Huadong's laughter, and they looked at him with astonished expressions. In their eyes, Huadong had always been an existence that they looked up to. His reaction at this moment was really unexpected,